Welcome to the Monday, April 24th regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. It's great to see so many folks out. Before I turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland, I would like to read a statement based on the recent litigation so that there's an understanding of where the Board of School Directors stands. On this past Thursday, April 20th, a three-judge panel of the Commonwealth Court dismissed the district's appeal of the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas from August 29, 2016 order enjoining the district from enforcing a tax increase in excess of 2.4%. Our attorney will outline the legal implications of this order after Mr. Copeland and I finish speaking. Despite the decision and the next legal steps that the board may take, our primary focus continues to be providing a high-quality education to over 8,300 students in our 10 schools. As board directors, we take great pride in the academic, and extracurricular experiences that make attending our schools special. From foreign language in the elementary schools to the International Baccalaureate program in high school to the state-of-the-art facilities, some of the best teachers and administrators in the state, we have much to be proud of. As your publicly elected Board of School Directors, our commitment to delivering on our educational mission remains unwavering and steadfast. It is important that our families and community members know this. Our work as a board continues, lawsuit notwithstanding, and includes finalizing the 2017-18 budget, one of our primary roles as board directors, addressing increased and growing enrollment and its impact on facilities, negotiating a fair and fiscally responsible contract with our teachers and staff, focusing on student safety, engagement, and achievement. Over the last few days, I've responded to a number of parents and community members regarding their concerns about how the litigation might change things here in Lower Merion School District. I've shared that the way in which we navigate our journey when addressing these and other priorities might look somewhat differently given the uncertainty. We remain committed to the premise that local budgeting and tax issues are best decided by a democratically elected school board, not the courts. However, we will continue to work closely with our administration to find workable solutions that best support our students and community. Our board is committed and prepared to address these challenges. The current board today and previous boards have been responsible, ethical, sound, and professional stewards of taxpayer funds. Our certified auditors support this view, as do bond counsel, and most importantly, the Pennsylvania Department of Education. We are grateful to serve such an engaged community of families, students, teachers, and staff. The board has acted with the utmost professionalism and integrity to preserve and protect Lower Merion School District. In closing, I want to welcome a respectful civil discourse around this incredibly important issue that has implications not just for Lower Merion, but for all districts around the Commonwealth. We anticipate extensive public comment this evening and ask if you would like to speak to please sign up now with Ms. LaPera, as at some point we may need to close the list and want to give everyone an opportunity to speak should they like to. I'll now turn the meeting over to our superintendent, Mr. Copeland, who will offer some remarks, followed by our solicitor, who will give us an overview of where the litigation stands. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to the Lower Merion School District.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. I'm going to hold my comments until I get to the budget presentation. I did just want to make note for anyone who came here this evening and didn't realize, normally when we anticipate a large crowd, we move to the auditorium. This evening, if you didn't get the message, the Lower Merion High School players are finalizing their dress rehearsal, and so we couldn't go to the auditorium, so we apologize for the crowded facilities, but we wanted to make sure that the students had an opportunity to complete their preparations for the role. Having said that, Mr. Roos.
Thank you. As Dr. Van Lynch said, the past Thursday, April 20th, the three-judge panel of the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court dismissed the district's appeal of the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas August 29, 2016 order enjoining the district from enforcing a tax increase in excess of 2.4% last year. The panel concluded that Judge Smyth's order was a permanent or final as opposed to a preliminary injunction, and that the district should therefore have filed post-trial motions rather than simply taking an appeal. All district legal counsel believe that conclusion is incorrect, and that post-trial motions were neither required nor appropriate in a case in which significant questions and issues remained and remain undecided. I also want to be clear that this issue was carefully researched and thoroughly and collectively deliberated at the time, and that the decision not to file post-trial motions was a conscious and deliberate one. The board has therefore asked its special counsel to seek appellate review of this latest order through our application for your argument to the Commonwealth Court and any other further appeals as deemed necessary. The reasons why they take the view that this conclusion include the following. The trial court had noticed the hearing as a preliminary injunction hearing, not as a trial of a permanent injunction. And while it's possible to convert a preliminary injunction hearing into a trial on a permanent injunction, that can only be done with the agreement of parties in accordance with case law. After Judge Schmeith entered his injunction, he directed the plaintiffs to post, and they did post, a bond under the applicable rules of civil procedure, which applies to preliminary injunctions, not to permanent ones. The pertinent rules of appellate procedure say that an injunction is immediately appealable, not a preliminary injunction. Whatever label the injunction is given, the fact remains that much of the case remains untried and undecided, including issues pertaining to the injunction order itself. And in the case of an order that is appealable as of right, post-trial motions are neither required nor permitted according to established case law. So for that reasons, the districts will be seeking review of the latest Commonwealth Court order.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Now on to, quite frankly, the reason that the board serves and the administration enjoys its public service, and that's because of the students and the teachers and the work that they're doing in the Lower Merion School District. This evening, we follow a tradition that we began this year of having student presentations come to the Board of Education and give us an opportunity to see how you shine. I caught some snippets today of former President Obama meeting in Chicago with high school and college students. I'm happier to be here and looking at you, although he looked like he had a good time too. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Eveslage to introduce our middle school interdisciplinary program.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Good evening, everyone. We proudly welcome our middle school students this evening to share with us the highlights of our interdisciplinary programs. We have interdisciplinary programs in all 3 grades at both middle schools. They're phenomenal programs, and our students are very passionate about them. So we welcome our students. I'll turn it over to Ms. Messick and our students. Thank you.
I'd like to turn it over to our MC, Caroline Brissett.
Hi, I'm Caroline, and I'm in the Communique program at Ballackenwood Middle School. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share the meaningful contributions of the 6 small group interdisciplinary programs in the Lower Merion Middle Schools. We feel very fortunate to be in a district that acknowledge a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching and learning can easily allow students to fall through the cracks, and our programs are just one of the many nets to help catch. And then to excel students for whom traditional classrooms are good, but not great. Small connected programs develop students as responsible members of a dynamic and close community. Students within these communities grow to enjoy learning from each other. Students in small learning communities bond with teachers and peers through prolonged and unique experiences and are more apt to take risks and step outside their comfort zone while still being valued by the community of learners. The bonding with peers and the focus on community meet emotional, social, and academic needs of adolescents. We all know students learn best when they feel safe and comfortable in their environment, and students in our interdisciplinary programs are comfortable to expand and challenge themselves academically, creatively, and socially to succeed as lifelong learners. Small teams afford opportunities that are not attainable on bigger teams. Because of the interdisciplinary teams, a community approach, block periods of time, and experiential learning, the teachers better know the whole student and can meaningfully design unique instruction. This type of learning environment encourages our youth to express their unique perspectives, in turn increasing their confidence and providing them with important tools for tackling challenging problems in the future. Our small teams empower the student voice and honor student choice. For the students who participate in these programs, the smaller teams increase motivation and engagement, foster curiosity and love of learning, and highlight the importance of asking questions. The small group interdisciplinary teams enable students to take ownership of their learning and explore paths they have never wandered down. Perhaps most importantly, we are then able to take these skills, attitudes, and dispositions with us as we proceed to our excellent high schools. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Liam Cunningham. I'm a 6th grader at Ballackinwood Middle School in the Evolve program. Recently, our teachers posed 3 questions to us. What makes our program unique? What were some projects that left an impact on you and why? And what about your program specifically helped you grow as a learner? Students from Evolve, Communique, and Voices of Change are here to answer those questions for you. The first question again is what makes the program unique?
Hi, my name is Rachel Spar. I am a 6th grader at Ballackinwood, and I am in the Evolve program. Evolve is unique because of 3 things. We are given choice in what we study, we are given freedom to plan a portion of our day, and the opportunity to collaborate with our peers. We get to choose what we study for most of the year, and it is very beneficial in the way that we get interested in our topics and learn things we would never know before. In periods 5, 6, and 7, we get to choose we get to structure our own schedule so we can organize it in a way that is best for our own personal needs. And finally, we get to communicate and interact more with our peers, make closer friendships, and learn together as a group. Thank you.
Hi, I am Ethan Aruchis, and I am a 7th grader at Ballackinwood Middle School in the Communicate program. What I think makes Communicate unique is our way of learning. In this program, we really get to explore different topics that are interesting to us, and this allows us to get more into the information that we are learning and helps us become better as students. And it allows us to learn everything that us 7th graders are supposed to know. I also think that in our class, our way of learning by doing more hands-on work really helps us to not only use our minds, but use our hands to learn more to figure out more what we have to do in our class, and allows us to really connect with what we're learning. I think that in Communique, our way of learning is very unique. Sorry, it's having a hard time here. Yeah, it is very unique compared to the other programs because we get to really learn what we want to learn about. This is what I think makes Communicate unique. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meredith Meyer. I'm an 8th grader in VOC. And I think what makes VOC unique is the family-like sense group that forms. Since you're in the same class as these people every single day for like 4 periods, you're forced to make friendships and things that you would never normally have. And I know that without these programs, I wouldn't really have all of the friends I have today. I would never be forced to. I think my parents appreciate it. At the beginning, everyone's awkward and distant, but then you slowly grow together. And by the time 7th grade and 8th graders go to the 3-day trips in Gettysburg and Williamsburg, we find that we're all like friends, and we know each other, and we can laugh and stuff. And what makes it different is the unset day. So every day, I know Miss Groen and Dr. Willis, they don't necessarily have a plan, because sometimes we have science, sometimes we don't, sometimes we have history, and so forth. And the teachers work together to make up projects that encompass all of the different the different classes and different subjects so that we have a better experience and more learning.
The second question is, what were some projects that left an impact on you and why?
Hi, I'm Kessler Lamford from Balakinwood Middle School, and I'm in Evolve. The thing that has left an impact on me is the choice that I have. I'm able to choose what I'm learning, and I'm able to choose something that I know will help me later in life. In my first inquiry unit, I chose to do a project on slavery, and as you can imagine, that left a huge impact on me. Some days I was left in tears from what I read, and some days I was left in very deep thought from what I read. In the second inquiry unit, I studied dogs in animal shelters, and I studied how we can better publicize them to make it easier for them to get adopted, because so many get euthanized every day. I figured out that I could create a website that would help these dogs get adopted, and I have not published it yet, but I am going to very soon. Those two projects have left the biggest impact on me because they have let me see that I could make change in the world and that I can make those things happen just by myself and with my peers. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Caroline again from Communique. So I had an amazing opportunity this year participating in the Philadelphia Flower Show. Our class started by each student researching a different Dutch master, which was the theme of the miniatures. And then after that, our class narrowed it down to two, Hans Lippershey and Piet Adolf. After many months of hard work designing our display, we were able to help build 2 miniature boxes. After it was done, a group of students went down to the convention center and helped set up the display. Every morning before school, a parent and student had an opportunity to go down and water and care for the display before the show was open to the public. There were many wonderful and new experiences that I was provided with this Communique project, and the entire experiences left a major impact on me in my 7th grade career. Another project that left a big impact on me was called Mitosis Musical. We started by getting into groups, and then as a group, we made up new words to a song that taught us about mitosis. We then made dance moves to go along with it. Each group had 6 songs that covered all the stages of mitosis and cell division. I can still sing them all and tell you all about cells, but there are many things I have learned in school that unfortunately I may have admit that I have forgotten because I do not talk about it every day. Every time I hear the songs on the radio, I replace the words with my cell words. I can't imagine I will ever forget about mitosis. I wish I had time to tell you more about these projects, but those were definitely the top 2 that impacted me the most. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tamara Galvin from VOC, and all of the projects that we've done in VOC so far have helped me grow as a learner, but one of the projects that really impacted me was the Civil War project we did earlier this year. We were tasked with creating a presentation on anything related to the Civil War. This project really allowed us to do whatever we wanted, a kind of freedom that kids on other teams may not have. As a result, I had a lot of fun researching a topic I was interested in and got to share my work in a creative way. This project was one of my favorite projects ever, and I'm really proud of how it turned out. VOC really lets us have the freedom to explore what we are learning in a creative way. Thank you.
The final question is, what about your program specifically helped you grow as a learner?
Good night, or good evening. Sorry, I'm reading backwards. My name is Michelle Kelly, and I'm an Evolve student at Balakinwood Middle School. Evolve has impacted me as a learner by making me both better as a group learner and a more independent learner.
I used to be more commanding and I didn't know how to work with other people in a group. But now, since I am with all of my friends in Evolve for 3 periods straight in the afternoon, I have learned to work with all of them and get along with all of them in all of the group projects we do. I've also learned to be more independent because there isn't a particular structure that we have in Evolve all times. By having less structure, we have learned to be more independent and work on our own with support as needed from the teachers. However, we can figure many more problems out on our own, and we can learn much more. Thank you and good night.
Hello. My name is Sam Auerbach, and I am a 7th grader in the Communique program. In the beginning of the year, I was a bit skeptical about joining Communique. I was used to structured learning, and I didn't know if I could even survive in an environment like this. I was wrong. I did really well in the no-structured community. It showed me 3 different ways of learning, and it showed me that there are different ways of learning. It also helped me to personalize the learning and make it special for me. It helped me to learn and retain the information. For an example, there's It's Debatable. It's Debatable, we've researched a project, a topic, and then we make a booklet on it. And the booklet helped me to put a unique style of me into it. And finally, it helped me with my communication skills. It has taught me the benefits of academically communicating and socializing with other students. As to taking charge and letting the other members of the group sit out, I decided to share it with the other groups. And I think that's really useful.
I'm Daisy Cunningham, and I'm in the Voices of Change program at Ballykinwood Middle School. In VOC, we learn to work in groups for the majority of the projects we are assigned. When I first walked into BC, I hated working in groups and had put myself in the mindset that I never wanted to try to get better at it. It's difficult, but I've figured out that sometimes you need to step out of your comfort zone and become a leader, and even harder, to step down and listen and become a follower. VOC has really helped me come out of my shell.
When you're ready to play, just press the button.
Okay, that's exciting. Thank you. Oh, goodness. Good evening. My name is Emma Dans, and I'm actually a junior in the IB program at Harridan. So although I didn't expect to come and feel old at the school board meeting, it's really exciting to know that what I was planning on sharing, I think that younger generations feel it now too, which is really, really exciting. And I was honored as a proud Artifacts alumnus to introduce a video that you will see shortly, and also speak briefly to my experience in and around the programs at Welsh Valley. I know that many people my age don't particularly love to talk about middle school. They'd love to chalk it up to, wow, well, that was one too many brace-filled photos that my mother took of me, and I didn't really know who I was. And I think that I identify with that struggle, because when you're 12 and you're 13 and you're 14 and you feel this pressure and this need to know who you are and who you want to be, coupled with the fact that you can't know who you are and who you want to be because you haven't figured out those hurdles and understood how you individually are going to overcome them to get to that finish line and understand. And although I know that I'm not speaking as someone that is there yet, but I've definitely come a long way since I was a 6th grader in Artifacts. And having struggled with these things, I know that coming from a group and a community like the 41 other kids and me in those classrooms with Mr. Ginsberg and Miss Wolf, while I didn't always feel comfortable in my own skin, I knew that I was learning how to be and how to feel that way, and how to accept leadership roles, and how to be a follower, and how to work in groups. And these are skills that, even as I look back as a high schooler, I know that I learned there and I was able to use throughout the rest of middle school and even now, today. And and it's a bit of a blur. It's a lot of dancing to the hustle randomly in my reading class. And it is a song about the layers of the earth, maybe not mitosis, but in the same vein. And it's always special. And it's important because I think that I've learned two really important lessons among smaller ones. And that is that it doesn't matter what your weaknesses are, because you always have a strength that you can attack a problem with. And even though I'm not a mathematical person, even though I was drawn to artifacts because of the creative, artistic component of it, I learned that those were not the only problems I was going to be successful at handling, and that there were skills that are universal to learn and to grow with. And secondly, that although my father reminds me on a frequent basis that I'm not at school to make friends, connections are everything and they are so important. And it was so helpful and wonderful to come to a place that was filled with encouraging and kind people. And even today, though I don't see the kids that I saw all day straight, every single day, they're the first people to accept an invitation to a poetry night or a concert. I'm about to embark on a big service project with someone from Artifacts that's going to represent a lot of local bands. They are people that are always in my life and are always down for either reminiscing or a new challenge, whether it's a photography collaboration or something in the same vein. Like, we always will have this experience together, and that's really, really special to me. And although I was not accepted or selected in the lottery for Waterbound, my twin brother was, and I watched him grow as he dressed up for the Continental Congress. And the other day when we took a walk through Rolling Hill Park, and he proudly pointed out the writing spot that he spent I don't even know how many hours in. And I remember attending the POV Poetry Cafe and watching as my friends and my peers that I grow with and grew with then really finding a voice in social change and equality and speaking up for themselves. And all that stuff is so special and so cool to be able to witness, and also to be able to drag myself away from all of the homework that I have to do to speak with you about it tonight. So without further ado, here is a video.
Every fifth grader going into sixth grade's greatest fear about middle school is being separated from all their friends and not making any new ones. And I think Artifacts is great for that, just because you get to meet, because it's a smaller team, you get to meet everyone and you get to make so many new friends.
Because of the small environment, I'm able to it's really gotten me kind of a little bit less shy and more comfortable speaking in class, because I know everyone, and that's something that I'll be able to carry for the rest of my life.
One day, the stranger came ashore, and it was this big project where you could paint a scene, and you kind of have to explain it through your picture. And it was just really cool to do, instead of just writing a paper or having a test, because it made you really think about what you were doing.
I don't like science. Well, I didn't really like science, but in the beginning of the year in Artifacts, we did a song.
Because I feel like I learn really well when I'm able to do something that's hands-on, because it's more than just learning about something. Being able to make something out of learning about it is just kind of taking this knowledge to a whole new level.
But then they taught you how to be dependent on one another and to always do your best.
Doing projects and Artifacts helps me learn and understand topics better, because when I try and remember different materials, I can remember the experience or the project that I did.
Artifacts is exactly what it sounds like, a mix of art and facts. We, instead of just learning about things, we experience them. Just instead of just learning how to format a script, we actually produce our own movie.
And asked us who was going to lead our movie. My class nominated me. That was one of the best days of school I've ever had.
We found that during our movie, every individual person had a big role, and that taught us to be more cooperative and responsible.
I'm more quiet, so I was really able to talk more, especially when we performed Antigone as the lead role in Antigone. I really felt like
I went out of my comfort zone. When we were doing the play Antigone, it really helped me like open up and start speaking more because I was a very shy person.
A paper, we get to like make a movie or do an art project to show what we learned, and it was just really amazing because I got to kind of show what I can do and like how I think, and it was just an amazing experience, and I'm so happy and grateful that I was able to get in.
Is the fact that we're 40 kids and that if we were normal teens, we probably would have never even talked to each other. But then Water Round, like, we found common ground by joining.
Really played to my interests and my strengths. I've always loved nature and history, so we did things like we went on hikes a lot.
So we go to Peak at the beginning of the year, which is in the Poconos. And it's like a 3-night trip, and we just get to know each other and focus a lot on the nature elements of the program.
Like learn about like plants and bird calls. Before Waterbound, I would get up, I would listen to the birds in the morning, but that was pretty much it. Now I hear any bird call, and I'm like, oh my god, that is a white-breasted nuthatch. That is a white-throated sparrow.
That's a white-breasted nuthatch. That's an American crow. That's a mourning dove.
When I wake up in the morning and I hear a cardinal, I'm like, oh, well, great, that's a cardinal that woke me up. Thanks a lot.
And I think one of the most unique things that Waterbound does, they do such as Continental Congress.
I played Robert Morris. He was a delegate from Pennsylvania for the Second Continental Congress. He actually abstained from voting for independence, which is what the Second Continental Congress was all about.
Since I was the secretary of the Congress, Charles Thompson, I'm always going to remember who that person was because I was him for 2 days.
You kind of felt as if you were there, and therefore, you know how close things like this were. It wasn't as some people might say, oh yeah, everyone in America, they're like, we're all gonna revolt. No, it wasn't.
You had to write your speech, you had your different debate topics, you then had a project where you would present as like a different person. The debate was really good. Everyone got really fired up. Make a joke about Mr. Rutledge.
Like I was Edward Rutledge, person in the Congress, and I really felt like I was Edward Rutledge.
We read the book Tom Sawyer, and then at the end of the year there was a special day called Tom Sawyer Day where we kind of did things how Tom Sawyer did them, like we had fun, ate candy, and I thought that was pretty fun. So it was really nice for me to really get to live that time period because it really just helped me learn a lot quicker.
There was the Lenape project. We used no modern tools, and we had to create something from the Lenape times. There were flutes, I did a mask.
They didn't have the types of materials we would have, so we would have to make things they would do. So I made a mortar and pestle. I couldn't use a drill or anything. I had to get embers and burn out the hole like the Napes would. Recently found my Peak journal, and I went back and read it, and I remembered those little things that I actually had already forgotten about, like when we saw a wild turkey right outside our cabins. And then we all tried to run and catch it, which didn't happen. But then just little things like that I'm going to remember that wouldn't happen on the other teams. Like that's what I think makes Waterbound special.
Overall, Waterbound's been a really great experience.
Like pokeberry makes a great purple dye if you're looking for an all-natural purple dye. I just wouldn't put it in your food because it probably isn't sanitary.
In POV, really learn a lot about social justice topics and issues, and it's really about just being aware of the people around you.
It really helps you see things from everybody's perspective and just not your own. And we do certain projects where we're allowed to just really think and not have to be as censored in other classes.
And I like being able to hear what other people's experiences are and sharing my point of view and hearing other people's point of views.
And like the topics we talk about are like really different, like social justice and different points of view.
We get to learn about like what's going on around us, like, and actually go in depth with it.
It's really a great program. It just kind of, the people there are very accepting, and you know they are. In the beginning of the year, they had you write down like a fact about yourself and your preferred pronouns for the teacher, and they just, it's a place that like just really like welcomes diversity.
In science and in math, you wouldn't think they relate social justice to these to those topics, but they do, because in science, like with global warming, that's a social justice topic, and in math, we do these PSA assignments, which have math where they're zooming in and zooming out.
One thing it taught me to do was look at the opposite person's point of view before judging them myself, and that's something I have been guilty of, and I know people who have been guilty of that too, and it really opens you up a little more to understand what people mean, like considering their thoughts before you put in your own.
And it's more of like just this giant family where you just talk, and you can always be like yourself around them.
It's really great because you can express yourself in, and you know you're not going to be judged for it.
Just in conclusion, thank you to the board for allowing us the opportunity to share on behalf of both Welsh Valley and Bala Cynwyd the experiences of our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Mitosis, I should have sung about it.
Before Mr. Copeland gets started, I want to apologize in advance for our cramped quarters here, but our students are preparing for their final rehearsal for their play at Lower Merion High School. So they have the auditorium, and we felt it appropriate that we have them maintain that space as they had already occupied it. So I believe there's a monitor in the hallway, Ms. LaPere, is that correct?
There's one in the back room with the overflow seating.
Okay, so there's some overflow seating if you feel uncomfortable standing. And we'll also make sure we're loud enough for folks who want to offer public comment when you sign up to speak. Okay.
All set? Okay.
And
Good
Mr.
evening,
Copeland,
everyone.
please.
We're going to get this straightened out at some point where I don't follow the good presentations. This evening, I'd like to present for you a recommendation on the proposed final budget. And we're going to go over a number of things, some of which I have gone over in the past. So if you've heard some of these budget presentations in the past, forgive me if I repeat myself, but it occurred to us a couple of things. One, not everybody may have heard the presentations or seen the presentations in the past, so we want it to be somewhat cumulative. I've adjusted them. They're not entirely comprehensive. And also, quite frankly, I've had conversations with people. People have come up to me and said, even though I don't particularly participate on social media, they're saying this or they're saying that. And so I also want to take the opportunity, if I can, to clarify some issues around our budget. And these are the things that we're going to be talking about, our budget drivers, those things that relate to the cost of the budget. Review the final budget, and then talk about the proposed budget, because the proposed budget is different than the preliminary budget that we set out earlier in January. I should also indicate that the budget process for us begins almost as soon as the last budget process ends. When the board votes in June, the business administrator and I begin to put together a budget book that goes to the administrators in August. The administrators in central office have a modified zero-based budget that is quite rigorous. They're asked to justify all their line items from the bottom up. Schools are given per capita based on the number of students, and then the assistant superintendent reviews those with them. And the issue really is that we're putting together a budget in August, September, October that's not going to take effect for at least another year or more. And there's no quarterly summations in a school district budget. So that's one of the issues that we deal with. This chart simply shows where the money comes from. And in a suburban district like Lower Merion, most of the budget money comes from a local source. Here you see we get very little from state or federal government. Now, in the original budget presentation, we talked about what some of the proposed budget issues were. I'm going to ask Mr. Orlando to just indicate what this slide is.
Sure. This slide shows the current budget, the preliminary budget, and the proposed final budget. It's our local sources of revenue. If you can see on the second line, just under $6.5 million of fund balance is being used as revenue to balance the budget. This represents a $2.7 million reduction from the $9.2 million used for the 16-17 budget as a result of careful planning and fiscal responsibility. Local sources are comprised mostly of tax revenues. The current real estate tax revenue is based upon the approved millage by the school board in June 2016. The proposed final budget reflects a reduction in millage rate increase from the preliminary budget. Most of the other categories are relatively the same from this year with some minor adjustments.
So not all of the budget needs are handled with revenue. We have to use fund balance at times to close that. I am pleased that we were able to use $3 million less of fund balance this year in order to close the budget. And then, Mr. Orlando, this slide.
Sure. This slide here, you can see under state sources, these are estimates. The Commonwealth budget was presented in February by Governor Wolf, and we'll monitor the proceedings over the next couple months for any adjustments. The state property tax reduction allocation figure has not been released yet, so that is blank at this time. This item will be adjusted upon the announcement by the state. And our federal sources are relatively the same as this year. So our total revenues and fund balance as revenue is $265,984,334.
Thank you. And our proposed budget expenditures, again, Mr. Orlando?
Yeah, this slide here shows a breakdown of our expenditures, and as you can see, salaries and benefits, which is just under $205 million, or roughly 77% of our budgeted expenditures. The other category accounts for approximately $60 million, and some of those items in the other categories are IU services, utilities, copier leases, books, technology, tuition payments, debt service, legal services, software, fuel, and insurance. So the proposed 17-18 proposed final budget is $265,984,334. This is an increase from this year's budget of 2.72% in expenditures. In order to balance the budget, the millage rate would increase 2.99% to 28.2145.
Thank you. And what this slide shows is where the majority of the money goes. It really goes to instructional programs. The whole issue of fund balance comes up, and I'm going to be talking more about that later. But the way the district budgets is the budget lines are budgeted conservatively, and that means you plan for some issues that could happen. But when we have information that we get from outside experts or actuaries, we use that. So, for example, this year we started out, I guess in November, with our insurance broker saying you need to put $29 million aside for health benefits. They came back again several weeks later and said, you're okay with $27 million. So we've reduced that line item by $2 million, and I'll talk about that more because that's what's allowed us to bring down the tax rate. Now, that's what they've told us, and we hope that that's the case. But like anything, since we're self-insured, if we have some catastrophic injuries or other things like that amongst our employees, we may have to, that line item may have to have transfers because of that situation. But ultimately, we try and get as close to a conservative budget as we possibly can. When there are savings, either through efficiencies or because things have happened that we've not had to spend the money, we feel pretty good. We had a rather mild winter this time. A mild winter means not a lot of overtime and so forth. Then that's what generates fund balance. And not all of it, but the vast majority of that is eventually going to be capital reserve. And here's a list of some items that come up from time to time. So when you need new buses, when you need large equipment purchases and so forth, that that tends to show up as a result of savings through the variance when you don't need the money that you originally thought you did. I have the BC temporary classrooms installation in bold there only because at this point in time we're still making some decisions as to whether that's going to be capital reserve or whether we have to find other ways of funding that project. Okay. Some budget driver increases. Instructional programs, enrollment that I'll talk about in some depth, enrollment growth, salaries, retirement contributions, special education program mandates, and the fact that we get very little increases in state aid, and sometimes completely unknown. All right, let's talk about enrollment growth. The greatest cost to any school district is directly related to the number of children served, and no other school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has seen the kind of growth that Lower Merion has. In the last 10 years, you can see that we've needed to hire 98 teachers. That includes librarians, nurses, and other professional support. Now, I can't put a number to that because over the 10 years, they were obviously different salaries, different times, and so forth and so on. If you think about it, 98 teachers in 10 years. And then facilities additions for all of those schools, not to mention the 2 new high schools. That has created an expense. Over the last 8 years in the Commonwealth, 502 school districts, 418 of those school districts have seen a decline in the number of students. The vast, vast majority of school districts in Pennsylvania are getting smaller. Only 84 school districts are showing some growth, and only 15 school districts show significant growth. Lower Merion's growth was 1,474 students, a 21% increase. Now, this chart, you may remember, I did show this before. You can see there was one school district that had a percentage of growth. That school district has a relatively small number of students. You can see Springfield in Delaware County, and you can also see the numbers for Lower Merion. And another way to look at it is the sheer number of students over that period of time. TE, Tredyffrin, and there's Lower Merion. You can see the percentage and numbers there, as well as the percentage and numbers for Lower Merion. And you can see where our next, the second, was significantly less. And at the same time, the district has used some efficiencies as we've grown. Now, just give me a minute to go over this a little bit. In November 2015, I think it was the first demographic report I had seen, but the district had been getting demographic reports all along. And one of the things that we did was we put into effect the partner schooling method. And at the time, I said, here's the paradox that we sometimes find ourselves in. We've got class size targets, and when we reach over the class size targets, we historically break up the class. If there were 4 classes and they all exceeded the class size target because the district values low class size, you open up a 5th class. When you open up a 5th class, your numbers drop, and you say, oh, there's space in those classes. Well, the problem is, when you do that, you can't necessarily find all the students to move into those spaces. So folks have said from time to time, you don't need to worry about space in Lower Merion because you've got whatever figures they use, 1,200, 1,300. Well, we said that. We said that there was going to be space, but if it's not where you need it, you've got a problem. So if I have space in 2nd grade, but I need to put a 5th grader somewhere, that space doesn't do me any good. If I have space in a high school and I need space for the middle school, that empty space doesn't do me any good. So it's I would argue, a gross oversimplification to say, well, just do the demographics. You have a whole bunch of space there. Well, you might, but you might not have it where you need it. So as a result, we used 2 demographers last fall. When those demographers came back, what they said to us was, look, it looks like you've reached a peak at the elementary level, but you're going to see an upsurge of students in the high school level. Now, that's very different than you see in a lot of school districts. Why? Because the major focus for figuring out how many students you're going to get is what's called a cohort survival. Now, our demographers used other scientific methods, but the thrust of it really is the cohort survival. What's that mean? It means that you look at the number of children who were born in your community over a period of time and measure how many of them end up going to school. So if there were 1,000 students born, 5 years later at school age, how many of that 1,000 show up? And if it's 80%, you say, okay, over time, it's a consistent 80%. No matter how many are born, 80% of them are going to end up showing up in your school. Lower Merion has not consistently played by those rules. And in fact, the number of students has exceeded the cohort survival. But more importantly, the number of students, the demographers are telling us, may be leveling off at the elementary, but it's exceeding the cohort survival at the high school and secondary levels. Don't know why for sure. Could be a lot of reasons for that, but that really says to us we've got some issues in that situation. If you had been to some of the earlier presentations that the middle school principals have done, Mr. Ponton, who was just up here, said, by the way, if we're going to maintain the interdisciplinary programs that you just saw, we're going to have to make some allowances for those programs. Now, that may say, well, you don't need to do that. You can always just stop doing those programs, and then you'll have space. We think that programmatically that would be a mistake going forward. So I think that and we said last spring, let's take a look at the partner school method. Now, the partner school process is whereby somebody who moves into the community new doesn't automatically get their neighborhood school. Last year was the first year that we did that. And actually, we didn't have to do it that often. But I think the significant number of times we did it, surprisingly, was from a new housing area going into, or new multiple occupancy unit going into Kinwood, and we've had to partner school those students. So, but the administration and the board agreed, let's see how that process goes before we move any further. So there's been no decisions on what to do with the elementary schools, but we do see some need, right now, some immediate need at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Okay. Another driver is the PESERS. PESERS is short for Pennsylvania School Employee Retirement System. I'm looking over there at Mr. Orlando. Okay, I got that right. Okay. Well, I got to go through this slide first. You're pushing me through that. So the current PESERS obligation is $18 million. That means that the school district is, the total cost is double that, but this is the school district's cost. That's going to go up to $20 million. Now, I'm spending time on the pension situation, and I'm going to talk about pension, I'm going to talk about special education, because those are two areas that the legislature has said, look, we understand that this is largely out of your control. There's nothing, as a matter of fact, in terms of the pension, they basically say, here's how much you have to put aside. And we know that that is a significant cost driver. So what we're saying is, okay, that's something that we will legislatively, statutorily, allow you to raise your budget above the cap, the Act 1 cap, along with special education. And here you can see that this will go up by $2 million. That's and the current exception only covers 0.9 of that, $900,000 of that. Therefore, $1.1 million is being paid through the taxes that were really supposed to go for the general program. The 2020 PESERS obligation could easily be more than $20 million. And from 2020 to 2030, the reserve will definitely be needed. And I'll talk about the reserve in just a second. No? Now's the second. All right. Get my slides. So when we get to fund balance, you'll see that there is a reserve for the pension system. And folks will go, well, if the reserve is there, why aren't you spending it now? Well, the reason we're not spending it now is it is a reserve. Because we can see that roughly about 2020, there's going to be a significant parting of what our revenue capacity is with what we estimate our expenditures will be. So in order to maintain our programs from 2020 on, we have this reserve. If you spend down that reserve now, we would get to the 2020-2021 period or sometime in there, and you'd say, well, now I don't have any way of being able to meet my revenue projections. We're going to have to start to drastically reduce our programs. So the PSERS reserve is for that purpose. Okay. In special education, the real problem here, culprit I would argue, is the state. The cost of providing a quality education that isn't just the minimum, but is a quality one because, frankly, that's what Lower Merion expects to provide for its children and its community. And, you know, I would argue that's not something we should be ashamed about. I think that's something we should be proud of. But since 2000, the state contributions for special education have remained flat at less than $3.5 million. 17 years. 17 years of virtual flat funding. At the same time, the district's special education budget has increased from less than $15 million to nearly $47 million. Now, I mentioned this a couple of months ago. Two decisions that were made that really do matter. One, in 2004, the Lower Merion Board of School Directors authorized the building of 2 new high schools. Now, when I said this, some folks said, well, the superintendent is blaming the budget on the debt service or the mortgage payments on the 2 high schools. I never said that. All I said was, that's a significant driver. There are other reasons why we tax or have to expend what we do. But at that point in time, the Board of School Directors said it's worth it to us to have 2 high schools, 2 orchestras, 2 music programs, double the selection for kids. And again, you could say, well, I don't think that you should have done that. They did it. The obligation's there. And quite frankly, I would argue the proof is in the pudding for those programs. And the second one was in the spring of 2007, the Lower Merion School District community, the community, voted against an earned income tax or personal income tax. Now again, somebody said to me, oh, people are saying you're advocating a new tax. Not. 2 things. One, all I'm saying is the community voted not to have that. Districts that had an earned income tax or a personal income tax prior to Act 1 continue to have that other source of income. If a district after, in 2007, going forward, they would not be able, I'm looking at Mr. Roos now, they would not be able to use that to add to the budget. They would have to use it to reduce the property taxes. Okay? So, Mr. Roos?
No, that's exactly correct.
So again, I'm not making a value judgment. I'm simply saying that that was a decision that was made, and as a result, the collateral of that is that most of our local effort is going to have to come from property taxes. This one I heard on, I didn't hear, somebody came to me about on social media. They said the district is doing something fuzzy with budget transfers and fund transfers. Absolutely not. Mr. Roos, you want to explain this, please?
Sure. There is 2 types of transfers that are authorized by the school code, the budget transfer and the fund transfer. The budgetary transfer is the one. It's typically done at the same time. The budget is passed in June. Last year it was done on June 16th. And there was basically a resolution approving transfers from basically one code, one class of expenditure, which in that case was debt services. It was changed to several other classifications, just so that they would be balanced. And that has to be approved by 2/3 of the school board, and it was. Now, at the same time, there was also a resolution regarding letting funds be used for different purposes. In other words, you find out over the course of the year that something that was originally thought was going to be used for one purpose is used for something else. This requires 2/3 vote of the board. It's not limited as to when it can be done. What happened last year in Lower Merion is the transfer occurred in consultation with the auditors after the close of the fiscal year. In other words, it's several months, all the way usually into October, after the June 30th close of the fiscal year is when the auditors say, okay, these are our recommendations, these are where we think that you have put money in one classification where it should have been somewhere else. What the board did in last June was pass a resolution with a 2/3 vote, basically directing the business manager to make the changes that were recommended by the auditor. So that was all done in pursuant to resolution.
Thank you. Also wanted to talk a little bit about fund balance. So what happens is we have two categories of fund balance, committed and unassigned. Now, in our fund balance, we have $35.8 million of committed fund balance. That means it's put in a specific location for a specific reason. The capital projects, the PEASers, which I spoke about earlier, Lmsb 45, that's other retirement benefits. Again, Mr. Orlando, we're basically told how much to put in that account?
Yeah, that is determined by an independent actuary.
And rate stabilization has to do with the fluctuation of our bond? Okay. And the $20 million that's unassigned, $6 million of it is used to balance our budget, leaving $14 million in contingency. That is a legal amount under Act 48. Our proposed final budget, the preliminary budget, we're looking to reduce because we were able to see some savings in benefits. We are going to reduce by about $1.8 million. We are already 100 students ahead of where we were at the elementary registration for last year, so I'm recommending putting 2 emergency positions aside, but this would reduce the final preliminary. It's not the end, but it is. We're hitting our date. The real estate tax change, Mr. Orlando.
Yes, this here is showing what the new millage rate would be. There would be for a medium household assessment just over $250,000. There would be a $205 increase, which would be a $59 decrease from the preliminary budget.
And the excuse me, and the.
We'll take questions during public comment if we could get through the presentation.
And the final, this slide, what I wanted to indicate here is one of the other things that I've heard is the board never reduces anything from its preliminary budget. This indicates the number of years, frankly, last year and 1 year, I think it was 2011, when in fact there wasn't a reduction, but the usual is. Finally, where does the money go? I think it goes to the programs of the district, and here's a list of them. What the district values: lower class size, extracurricular programs. I would really encourage folks, this year we did a special finance committee meeting on the operations and facilities, followed by a special finance committee on curriculum, where we broke down how much we spend on textbooks and the curricular programs that go into the school district. This Wednesday will be staffing, and we'll have an evening, I think, on special education. And really take a look at the genuine quality breadth of the programs that are offered. And I'm frankly proud to be superintendent. We intend to continue to be as transparent and as efficient in the use of public funds as we have in the past. Thank you.
Let me.
What is the percentage of that increase, please?
I'm sorry. Can we have some order just a bit in our meeting? In order for us to be able to proceed and for folks to get their questions answered, we will be glad to do that. However, it's important, I think, that we respect one another and we have some level of civil discourse in this meeting. So, Mr. Copeland, would you mind going back? Mr. Copeland, would you mind going back to?
The slide, the total percentage increase is 2.9.
Can you go back to the slide previous to that for us? Just one slide. So I believe the question was, what is the tax increase for this year? Mr. Copeland, would you just mind going over that for this particular year for us?
We started out with a anticipated tax of 3.85%, and the preliminary, or the final proposed budget is 2.99.
And how did we get there?
We got there through our back in November, December, our insurance broker suggested that we budget one amount. Now, I guess because of experience throughout the year, he's able to say you could reduce that by $2 million. We decided to use 1.8 for the reduction, but because we've seen a spike of 100 students over last year, just as an in case, reserve 2 positions in case we need that at the elementary level as emergency.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just for a moment have the board raise their questions and then we'll move to public comment. Please, Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you for the presentation. This is not the final budget, Bob. This is the, our final budget, I believe, is approved in June. So we have some more time to work on this before it's all finalized in another about 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks, I guess. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Dr. O'Leary.
There's some data that's not quite up to date, and the example of the state property tax reduction allocation. Is there some feel for when we might actually get that information?
Typically in early May is when they will release the information as to what our allocation is. And then the county will send me a homestead file, which we need to go through to make sure it's accurate. At that point in time, then we can determine what the homestead exclusion amount would be.
Any additional questions to my right? Okay, to my left? No? We've had several finance meetings. So at this time, we will, is it time for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, yes, all right. So we will open it up for public comment at this time on agenda items only. If you're interested in offering public comment, please sign in with Ms. LaPera up front. There is a 3-minute time limit. If you could remind us of your name and generally where you reside in the district, we'll be glad to hear from you.
First up, we have Jane Broderson, Daniel Marion Efron, Alexandra Ginzinger, Anne Maloney, and Yvette Mitson.
Is this on?
You can come up and stand up along the side here, and then I'll read the next list of names. Thank you.
Jane Broderson, Penn Valley. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Do we really think we can maintain our amazing programs and class sizes exactly the way they are and keep our AAA municipal bond rating in the face of the largest influx of new students in the state, while at the same time slashing $40 million out of our budget and handing out tax refunds too? Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. The plaintiffs suing our schools are dangling carrots in front of us, and they're saying we should expect a $1,400 tax refund. What they don't mention is that the real number, if any, would be more like $200. Is $200 worth handing over control of our schools and stripping them down as they openly demand? Here's what they say. Public school education means basic adherence to the minimum requirement established. Do you have any idea how bad the minimum requirements are? Or how lucky we are to have one of the best public schools in the nation? Let's let the voters decide if strong public schools benefit not only our seniors, our low-income families, and our families with children, but also every single homeowner in our community who depends on strong public schools to keep our property values strong. These plaintiffs are masters at spin. You cannot spin your way out of the outrageous things they said. The genie's been let out of the lamp. You can't now try to stuff him back in because of the outrage you have unleashed. You can't spin your way out of saying our public schools are meant to be inherently inferior to a private school. So therefore what? Our low-income families should resign themselves to a second-rate education? Yes, let's let the voters decide what we stand for and who we trust. Do we want to divide our community and build walls, pitting the haves against the have-nots? Or do we want to stand up for the dream of America from Brown v. Board of Ed and vote for school board members who will prioritize our amazing schools over tax savings? Every child deserves the best. Sammy D., one of our Welsh Valley students, recently said, just because our public schools are free, it doesn't mean they should be inferior. And referring to the lead plaintiff, if our education goes down, we might not have the chance to design something that could one day save many lives, including his. If we can't hold the line on the great Lower Merion School District, it's going to be open season for every other public school. Save Lmsb and vote on May 16th. Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Daniel Rain Efron from Wynwood. As a resident who does not want to be a part of this class action lawsuit against the schools, I respectfully ask the plaintiffs to withdraw the lawsuit. The lawsuit is not about efficient spending by the school. Instead, the lawsuit distracts administrators from focusing on being more efficient. This lawsuit is about depriving other people's children of a great education and giving them a basic one instead. Especially racial and economic minorities and students with disabilities. I quote from the complaint, the systematic and continuous failure to afford basic public school education in favor of an impermissible expansion into the arena of education reserved for private school education. One must wonder about other motivations behind the lawsuit. The lawsuit complains that charter schools are only paid $24,000 by the district instead of $31,000. Those are mandated formulas, by the way. The lawsuit has also tried to paint the school's 21% fund balance as out of the ordinary. However, in 2014-15, the PA Auditor General found 155 charter and district schools with reserves of more than 30% of their total spending that year. 35 of them were reserves topping 50%. Furthermore, the lawsuit scares people by making it seem that taxes have risen more in Lower Merion than in the surrounding areas. However, the published 2017 budget by the Lower Merion Township Commissioners directly contradicts this assertion, and I quote from their budget. The actual combined school, county, and township real estate tax rate for 2016 of 35.045 is lower than many other surrounding townships, especially considering Lower Merion does not impose an earned income tax. The overall real estate tax tax rate is still in the mid-range for Montgomery County and municipalities. Other than nearby Upper Merion and its substantial business tax base from the King of Prussia Mall and its many business parks, Lower Merion has the lowest total real estate tax rate among communities that do not impose an earned income tax. That's straight from the budget of Lower Merion Township Commissioners 2017. The lawsuit is designed to impose the view of a few and set a wide precedent to weaken public schools by depriving them of the resources needed to ensure that every child in our community has the opportunity for a great education at a neighborhood public school. Courts should let locally elected school boards decide how to educate their children. I insist that the school board vigorously defend against this lawsuit and safeguard the education for all the children of Lower Merion.
Alexandra.
My name is Alexandra Geisinger. I'm a resident of Narberth. I have 2 children in the
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name.
My name is Alexandra Geisinger. I'm a resident of Narberth. I have 2 children at Marion Elementary School in 3rd and 5th grade. My children receive the benefits of both the Challenge Program but also the Special Education Program. I moved to this area 2 years ago because of the school district. I voted for this school board because of the decisions they made. The reason why your property values are going up is because it's a choice that my family made to spend our money to move to this district and participate in a community that valued education and was willing to put their votes to education. I agree with the prior speaker that the voters voted. They voted for this school board. I appreciate the work that you do, and I hope that a lawsuit doesn't undermine what was an electoral decision by this community to support our schools.
My name is Yvette Mitten. I've lived in Lower Merion for over 50 years. I had 3 children that grew up here. 1 went to Herritt, 1 went to Lower Merion. I'm appalled at what's going on. The value of the community and how children are being educated, and I agree with giving back the money. Give back the money. We have things that are going on. We had, years ago, I was on the school board at Ballast School. I've been in Kinwood School. I've been in Lower Merion and Herritt. I can't believe what I see today. I mean, I know that my children got a wonderful education. I don't see that now. I see children that, when you talk about the film that was just shown before about waterboarding and going on going down the river and everything like that, it's ridiculous. You learn how to study. I have a young grandchild who takes violin in kindergarten. She will have piano in elementary school, and she's 6 years old and teaches math because most children take Common Core math, and she teaches multiplication tables. And I think it is a very sad day what is happening now. And I think that everybody should look in their heart what is going on, and that's all I can say. And God bless America, and may we keep our children safe.
Hi, my name is Ann Henry Maloney. I live in Marion Station, and I have 2 daughters at Marion Elementary. Like my neighbor Alexandra, I moved to this community in large part because of the quality of the school community and the choices that are available to families and children, the breadth of the education, the caliber of the teachers. Just tonight, I saw 3 of my children's teachers in this room, standing room only, just to watch. There's one in the corner right there. The teachers at these schools care so much and work so hard, and I cannot differ more from the last speaker. About a month ago, I watched my 10-year-old daughter play Brandenburg's Concerto at Marion Elementary in the school 5th grade orchestra performance along with about 30 other children. They stood up, they took a bow, they were beaming I never in a million years thought I would see my daughter enjoying classical music and taking part in such a way. This is a remarkable, remarkable thing to see. A few weeks before that, she took part in Reading Olympics, which is a district-wide initiative in which all the children read the same books. They compete, they answer questions at this very high school. That's an after-hours event, too. I didn't mention that orchestra practices before school weekly for months on end. Teachers who aren't affiliated with the fourth grade students oversee Reading Olympics. These teachers give more than just teaching in the classroom. My children are reading way ahead of grade level. They're learning tremendous amounts from these schools. These teachers email us, they check in on our children, they care, and the quality of their education is top, top notch. For these reasons, I am very much in support of the administration's recommended budget. I've seen the wonderful, wonderful product of these programs, and I can't possibly encourage you all to think about those things as you make your votes next year. Thank you.
We have Matt Birch, Judith Levine, Max Norris, and Jeff, it begins with a D. I'm sorry, I can't understand the writing. Maybe Dearcy or Jeff?
Looks like DC.
DC. Matt, you can come on up.
Are you ready for us to start? Oh.
Matt Birch, Judith Levine, Max Norris, and Jeff Dearcy.
Yeah, Matt. Hi, Jeff. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Birch, and I'm a member, not a member, I live in Penwyn. Full disclosure, I am a teacher at Welsh Valley, and it's been my honor to teach some of your children, coach some of them in sports, as well as coach and advise some of them in TSA. But tonight, I'm not here tonight representing Matt Birch, the teacher. I'm representing Matt Birch, the father. Several years ago, my wife and I lived in Bryn Mawr, and we moved to a neighboring school district with a good academic reputation. And as it turned out, one of my two sons needed some extra help. And we received a great deal of conflict from that school district, and after about 3 years of fighting back and forth of trying to get him the services needed, we decided that we were going to make the investment and move into Lower Merion, even though it meant sacrificing a yard and a house that wouldn't be as big. But this would be something that we know would be an investment in their future. I'm happy to say that that child now is a high school junior who's taking 3 AP classes, 2 honors courses. He has been a member of TSA, and he rows for the crew team and is looking to row in college. My youngest has gotten on a roll for every quarter this year as an 8th grader, and he's a 3-sport athlete. I moved to this district for this very thing, for my children to get the education that they deserve and I know and I believe in as a member here. I know for a fact that this affects property values. A house 2 doors down from me went up for sale about 2 weeks ago. It sold in 24 hours. It sold at about 10% above what my house was 6 years ago. The house next to me went up for sale last week. There are 3 bids. It is a bidding war. So this goes beyond just money. This is my children. This is why we're here. But it also does affect our property values. I ask you to ignore the plaintiffs and stay with what we are all here for. Thank you.
My name is Judith Levine. I'm the parent of a Ballard Kinwood School student and a professor who studies social policies that address social inequality, and I am a proud graduate of BCMS and Lower Merion High School. I want to voice my support for the board's budget and thank the board for your foresight as you grapple with the challenges that the district will be facing because of increased enrollment. I thank you for thinking ahead to 2021 and not leaving us high and dry at that point. My family lives here because the district is strong and because we want it to stay that way, both for the education of our children and the maintenance of our property values. I don't fully understand why there's a fiscal argument against keeping the schools strong, but and I just have to off the cuff say that as a professor, I have to say that the type of education that the students tonight demonstrated is exactly what we're looking for in our classrooms at the university level, and that employers tell us that they're looking for in our graduates. I also have to say that I was at a conference last week and was grappling for something intelligent to say, and then I remembered something my daughter came home from middle school with, and I used that, and the PhD from Yale seemed to think it was an intelligent thing to say. There's a plethora of social science research that shows the effect of low class size on positive student outcomes. There's just as much research showing the importance of the arts and other innovative programming on learning not just in the arts, but in mathematics and science as well. We are training minds how to think. It's not just about the material. And all the evidence points to the fact that quality public education is the route to racial and class equality. So one does need to ask if those against public education are against these outcomes. I want my child to have the class size and programming that are needed for the quality education LM has traditionally provided, and I hope that when my child is finished with high school, that I will have the moral compass to continue to want that for the rest of the children in Lower Merion. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Max Norris and my family lives in Narberth. I graduated from Harridan High School 4 years ago, and I thought it would be interesting for the board and the community to consider the perspective of someone like me that was a student at Lmsb for 12 years and has recently graduated from college. So how well did Lmsb prepare me for college, you may ask? In short, incredibly. For starters, when I was in elementary school, the district realized that math was my best subject. So rather than giving me the quote-unquote cookie-cutter education, they placed me and several other top math students in a middle school level math class to challenge us and to keep us learning. Thanks to the district's ability to provide advanced math courses to me and my friends, by my junior year in high school, I was able to take a college-level calculus course and earn college credit. Secondly, I am supremely grateful for all the amazing opportunities I was given by the school district to help me develop musically. In middle school, I played in Mr. Eskin's band, orchestra, and jazz band. In high school, I played in Mr. Joseph's band, orchestra, and drumline, and sang in Mr. Bizich's chorale and earned college credit by taking his advanced placement music theory course. I still play music every day because I absolutely love it, and I thank LMSD for introducing me to and for helping me develop this passion. My freshman year of high school, I joined Harridan's cross-country team, and after seeing that I had some natural talent for running, my coach, Mr. Click, came up to me one day after practice and said, "You know, throughout my years spent in the running community, I've seen many kids run, and I think that if you work hard at this, you could get pretty fast, and running could help you get into a great college." I hadn't thought yet about what I was going to do after high school or where I was going to go to college, but this conversation with my coach got me thinking, and it made me excited. So sure enough, I took Mr. Click's advice, followed his training program, and my senior year of high school, I won a state championship and became an All-American on the track. Thank you. All of a sudden, despite not being an exceptional student compared to my brilliant classmates at Harridan, I was ranked about 30th out of my class of 270. I realized that I could go to just about any college, and I chose to go to school at and run for Columbia. Coming into Columbia, I was nervous that I would get poor grades because I earned quite a few B's in high school, and I expected it would be more difficult than high school. Well, in my first semester, I surprised myself. I didn't think I worked any harder in college than I had in high school, but I earned a 3.6 GPA that semester, good enough for Dean's List. My second semester, I got even better grades, and I realized that this was because I was challenged back in high school. In class discussion at Columbia, I realized that these students at a top college were no smarter or well-spoken than my friends and classmates back from Harridan. I ended up majoring in mathematics statistics and recently spoke with my friend who attended Lower Merion and studied math at Wisconsin, and we both agreed that our math teachers in Lmsb were better than our college professors. This past December, it's true, absolutely. This past December, I graduated 1 semester early from college, thanks to the semester's worth of college credit I was able to earn in high school. This January, I applied to statistics programs at Michigan, Stanford, UCLA, and Duke, and I was 4 for 4. Budget cuts should not be made. Besides the fact that educations like the ones provided by Lmsb are intrinsically good, providing a great education is also a sound investment for the community and the township's users.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, well done. Next speaker.
Sorry. I don't know if Jasmine's come up here, but I don't know if
Jeff? Jeff D.C. Winwood, and I apologize, I don't have any story to tell you, although I am a Lower Merion School District graduate. I had a question about the budgeting process, if you don't mind, and that is the decision-making process that goes into assigning the attorney to continue to fight this. That's not a partisan question. I'd just like to know what goes into that decision, and have you guys come to a conclusion of how long that battle will go? I don't know who answers that question.
Mr. Roos, can you, I guess, repeat your statement that you shared at the beginning of the meeting, if that helps?
I don't think I want to hear the attorney. I want to hear you guys about why he is your attorney in this process and for how long you're going to fight this battle.
So our core values suggest that we'll fight it until we win. We're fighting on behalf of the students and families in the Lower Merion School District.
I get that.
And so we're going to follow our mandate by our constituents, and as a publicly and democratically elected school board, we will continue to do what's right. There's no fuzzy math here. There's nothing to hide from. We unapologetically provide the kind of education for all of our kids.
I get that. This is not a partisan. You missed my point. Do you have you created a budget to that process? Have you created a cost to that process? And if you have, how long is that going to take? By the way, I have no agenda here.
I don't know that I can answer that to your satisfaction, but that's something we could certainly consider going forward.
Okay.
We have legal line items in our budget, if that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah, if you do, that'd be great. Well, I was in the back. I didn't know if they were up there.
We budget for legal expenses, absolutely.
Okay. Outstanding.
And we have insurance companies as well when unfortunately we're sued.
You got it. Thanks. No fault.
Amara Briggs, Brett Offert, Philip Browndies, Brad Moser, Sharon Weinstein. Amara Briggs? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Van Lynch. I was out in the hallway, so I apologize for that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amara Briggs. I live in Bala Cynwyd. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a 12-year-old boy, Gavin, who's in 6th grade at Bala Cynwyd Middle School, and a 9-year-old daughter, Jenna, who's in 3rd grade at Cynwyd Elementary School. And I have served most of my career as a banker. I've served large companies and small, and I hope to talk tonight about what I see and I'm here tonight because I care about the community. I care about our district and our schools to be the best for our future. But I cannot support your budget or your budgetary process. And I'd like to offer tonight, however, that your critics, including the plaintiffs in your lawsuit, have done you and all of us a great disservice by failing to provide results or good financial reporting for proper governance and fiscal responsibility. So I would ask tonight that you consider 3 things in your budgetary process and reporting to the community. The first is to show an actual to budget process, and that includes actual financials to date, a financial roll forward that shows a forecast to date, and not budget as soon as the budget is done, as Mr. Copeland offered earlier, but to budget to actual. That's how most companies do it. That's how most nonprofits do it. I serve a nonprofit board. As finance chair, I'm asked to give a roll forward every year as to budget to actual. I'm also asking that you consider a report for a fund balance roll forward, which shows the changes in all the assigned and unassigned fund balances so we can understand. I know some of the slides tonight gave us some of the values that we have to search through, but a one-pager that shows the change in fund balance and cash and assets, as well as debt, would be helpful for all of us to understand your fiscal, what you're doing fiscally. And the third thing I would ask is for a capital expenditure budget that looks into the future. I am very concerned about the enrollment growth and how we're going to pay for some of the facilities expansion. Tonight we heard about Bala-Cynwyd Middle School and how that's going to be funded. It's not yet been determined. We have to determine those things. We have to get ourselves prepared from a debt capacity standpoint as to how we're going to fund these things. And we have something like $660 million in debt on the balance sheet. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Brett Auckberg. I live in Marion Station. My parents moved to Lower Marion when I was 6 years old. I got the benefits of being an English as a second language student and all the benefits that offered in Lower Marion. And after I became a professional, decided that there was really only one place that I wanted to move to for my daughter to go to public school, and that is Lower Marion. I have no prepared words, obviously, but would like to say that I very much support the core values that this board has represented. I strongly, strongly agree that you should continue to fight this lawsuit as long as you can. I don't believe that a minimum education that focusing first on cost and second on quality is appropriate. I do believe that driving for the highest quality spending that we can within reasonable expenditure, and I do think that an actual view of all of the data as opposed to cherry picking specific statistics, which I have seen in the lmsd.info site, that is incorrect, and when we look at the problem holistically, I do believe that it is a reasonable expenditure for the quality that we get, and over time, Lower Marion has continued to demonstrate a national competitive quality to the education that there are very few school districts in the entire country that can compete with. And once again, you will have my vote as long as you continue to behave this way. Thank you.
Philip Roundy's Winwood. I'm going to read tonight a statement from Arthur Wolk. He regrets he could not be here. The Commonwealth Court dismissed your appeal for failure to file post motions by your phalanx of expensive lawyers. Do you intend to get our money back from them for what might be legal malpractice? Why would you file a petition for allocator to the PA Supreme Court when you have no law to support such a petition? You told us the cost was $4.95 an hour when the insurance company was only willing to pay $170 an hour for legal fees. Do you intend to get back our $200,000 paid to them with our taxpayer dollars? Have you fired these lawyers, and do you intend to, since they now have a non-waivable conflict of interest? One of those lawyers said publicly that you do not intend to refund the money you told Judge Smythe you would keep in an escrow account pending the results of the appeal. Now that you have totally and completely lost, do you intend to refund the money without a motion for contempt filed against all of you? Now that the law and facts have determined that you engaged in systematic misrepresentation of your budget to the taxpayers and you illegally accumulated more than $60 million in reserve, do you intend to voluntarily refund that money to the taxpayers? Given that you lied to us about how much the last contract of the teachers union cost and bragged that you only gave them a 0.5% salary increase, but neglected to mention the 7% increase in benefits, do you intend to increase salary and benefits again just 2 years later? Do you intend to negotiate a settlement for this litigation now that you have been vanquished and the law of the case is you illegally took our money? School directors, are you still going to reimburse the school district the $200,000 paid for your benefit, even though you were not sued? If not, we will.
Brad Moser, Gladwin. I think a lot of the response in this room are people who are for what's been going on. Misunderstand what a lot of us who are supporting Arthur Wolk and his lawsuit is. And it's not that we want less of a quality of education. It's that we want an education that is fair to all of the community, and the school board and the students aren't the only people who live here. I personally, we're going to lose our family home after 62 years because my mother can't afford to pay the taxes anymore. It's gone. And I'm the only one of my siblings that still live here. You know, I went to Lower Merion and I got a great education. We can drive to New York City in a Jaguar, a limousine, or a nice car that's well appointed, that's a lot less money, and still get to where we need to go. When the economy changed, I was a contractor for my career. I was forced to tighten my belt. Before that, I'd give people a price. If they like me, I'd get the job. It turned into a negotiation afterwards. What about the negotiation with all the things that you guys are spending money for? It's not that we want to lower it. What we want to do is make sure that we get the best bang for our buck. And when you deal with the different unions, those unions have a responsibility like the rest of us Americans who had to tighten our belts. They should have to tighten their belts too so that we can get things in order. We have to respect our elders in this community, the Inuit population to the great north. The elders are the most important people in the community. Here, we seem to say the children are the most important. They're extremely important. You guys showed all sorts of stuff about social importance and social issues that you wanted to make our children aware of. I can't understand how you can go to bed at night when we have the Taj Mahal of school districts here, and 4 miles down the road, they don't even put toilet paper into the bathrooms because the kids will flush the toilets and clog. It's ridiculous. That's why I didn't get up here and say that what you were saying was ridiculous because you had a point. So please don't interrupt me. So there's got to be a way to balance this out to still give a quality education that we have been known for since I went to school. And when I went to school, I think there was 10,000 students. We didn't spend anywhere near this kind of money. Thank you very much, and I hope you'd reconsider your positions.
Hey, Joey.
Hi, I'm Sharon Weinstein. I live in Penwyn. I was glad to see on the agenda that you were considering updating the capacity study for the school district. because given the enrollment projections, my top concern in the elementary school level is course space capacity at Penguin Elementary. I'd like to suggest that the future capacity study include something that adds together all the course space in the indoor and the outdoor space per student added together, because I think the way it's being analyzed now sort of masks the multi-purpose use of some of the rooms. I took the liberty of taking the course space data from studies that you guys presented last year and put in the existing population. And as you can see, Penguin has the smallest square foot of indoor capacity per student of any of the elementary school districts. And that's before the added 40 students that are projected in the Sundance and in the Montgomery County demographic studies. Even if we have the addition to add on that small gym, we'll still be, I guess, up to the lowest level as Gladwin when it comes to indoor core space, but while sacrificing outdoor core space. And turn around. If you look at the outdoor core space by school, Penguin is by far the smallest square footage per student. So taking away any field space at all at Penguin of all schools just makes absolutely no sense. I really, even if we don't use any more space, we're still going to have the smallest capacity, even with the field we have now. That's without building on it at all.
And so the other schools.
I would suggest that the board consider an enhanced partner school program, a voluntary partner school program, similar to what you have with Harriton and Lower Merion, where see if, and we could start it as early as this fall, see if families are willing to volunteer to go to other school districts, because the only way, the other elementary schools, because the only way to really resolve this capacity problem is to have students go to other schools. We have too many students for the course space at Penguin. So if we have, get rid of the June deadline for partner schooling and see if there are parents who might volunteer to have their kid in a more spacious school and see how it works in the fall. We're not expanding the school yet in the fall anyway, so it seems like a good time to see how effective that type of procedure would be. Thanks for your time.
Michelle Moser, Katie Barr, Ivan Haskell, Jeff Essay, and Panit Sahota? Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Moser, and I live in Wynwood. As a township resident, a Lower Merion School District teacher, and the parent of a 6th grader at BCMS, I'm here to voice my support for the Lmsb board. Thank you. Thank you for a fiscal strategy that looks towards the future. The Lmsb community voted for a board that meets current expenses, finds savings where possible, and provides adequate funding for a rapidly growing student population and increasing costs. Thank you for supporting your professional and support staff. Your commitment to us demonstrates your faith in our ability to provide an outstanding education to every student. And thank you for putting students' well-being, personal and academic success at the center of every board decision. As a parent, I'm so appreciative of the school board for making possible the many opportunities an Lmsb education provides my daughter. I'm proud to live in and work for the Lower Merion School District, and I appreciate your allowing me to support the board tonight.
Hello. My name is Katie Barr. I live in Narberth, and I feel that I'm happy for the opportunity to just express my support for the board and for my very strong support for the need for excellent public education. Thank you. I feel that most people who have spoken here before have said this much more eloquently than I can, but I will just say 3 things about the past, the present, and the future. My family moved here 5 years ago, and we moved to this community expressly because of the excellent public education. We would not have moved here had the schools not been as just truly excellent and high quality as they are. At present, I have 3 children. 2 of them are at Belmont Hills Elementary School, and I have a younger daughter who will be joining them shortly. My experience at this school has been wonderful. My 2 sons have very different needs, and they have been met by excellent teachers, counselors, challenge staff, everybody, principals, everybody across the board. Excellent individualized attention. And for the future, I have a 3-year-old daughter, which means that I need excellent public education for my own self for the next 14 years. That's a long time. That takes a lot of planning, and I recognize that it takes a lot of resources. And so for myself and for everybody else in my situation, I want to support the ability of the board to get the resources that they need and to make the long-term planning decisions that you need to do. And I'm happy to pay my taxes in order to enable that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ivan Haskell. I live in Ardmore, and I signed up to speak just because I want to say that I support the board's adoption of the 2017-18 budget as was proposed today. I do have 2 children in the district, and I really have been very impressed watching over the last decade or so absorb the 1,500 students that have been added to the district during that time without, to my mind, really losing much in the way of educational experiences. No one wants to see an increase in taxes, but some things are really worth paying for, and I believe the education Lmsb provides is one of those things. And, after watching the budget presentation today, it's clear, and we know, like with PSER's expenses that have already been agreed to in the past, there are many things, costs over which the district doesn't have control, but that really could threaten the quality of the education, the extracurricular activities, and so on that we provide. And I really think that the budgeting approach that was described today really does as good of a job as you can in addressing those issues while allowing us to focus on really innovation in education, which I think is what has been done in the last few years. And then finally, I really think I feel compelled to speak because I think it's clear that in many ways public education is now under attack and will continue to be under attack with what's going on at the national level, state level, and locally. Earlier tonight, we really heard some incredible stuff about some of the programs at the middle schools, and I just want to say that while those things might not go away right away, it's possible that, with the types of cuts that many want us to see in terms of our budget, those things might eventually be lost, and I think that would be a real shame. Thanks.
Good evening. Jeff Asay, Narberth. I've come before you prior to the lawsuit. I've come to you during the lawsuit now. I'm not a party to some of the things that are described in the lawsuit. I believe very much in strong schools. I have 2 children in the schools. I've come to you in the past and I've talked to you about the law of diminishing returns, about how we need to bend the cost curve down. It's nice to see, I don't know if it's because of the lawsuit or just circumstances, but it's nice to see that the tax rate increase this year is a little bit lower than it's been trending recently. But just like the ACA, we need to watch that cost curve, because what seems like just a few dollars a month, one year over the next, in a decade, it suddenly looks like the healthcare costs and the college costs that have spiraled out of control for a lot of families. I know I've made that point before, but there's a large crowd here, so I thought I'd make it again. To my main point, first I'd like to recognize the tremendous leadership team at Ballackinwood Middle School. I've had the opportunity to not only experience positive interactions with them personally, but I have heard amazing things about the support that team has provided to the student and family of a BC student who was a neighbor of mine, fighting for his life against a terribly rare cancer. They have exhibited tremendous leadership and empathy and support for that family, and I thank them for that, and I wanted you to recognize that as well. Next, I'd like to briefly comment on a statement presented by the board president at the beginning of the session tonight, that just because the state authorities and auditors Affirm the budget practices and board actions as legal. That's very little comfort to those of us who are familiar with the failures of regulatory agencies prior to the Great Recession and the failures of auditors of poor corporate actors like Enron. After the courts thus far have ruled against the district, these calls to authority ring hollow. At this point, you need to earn our trust back. Finally, a question, or several, and some of them were answered by Dr. Copeland. At this point, we all know the district has set aside $50 to $60 million in reserves. What was the total reserve being pursued? 10% of the overall budget? 20%? What's the goal of these reserves? Emergency cash to pay for capital projects with cash? It appears from Dr. Copeland's presentation that that was for meeting pension reserve requirements that would hit us in 2020 and beyond. It would be nice if those things had been presented from the very beginning, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when questions began to be asked prior to the lawsuit. Just be transparent about it. Here's our goal and here's why. I don't think those things were very well presented, and there we are where we are as a result. Instead of litigating a rather sneaky budget process that has clearly been shown because of the lawsuit, showing deficits, booking surpluses, maybe the litigation ought to be towards the state to cap pension obligations or to obtain a stronger negotiating stance with organized labor. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Can I just call the next group of people before you start? Thank you. Next up after the speaker is Stephen Gleason, Tanya Schreiber, Adrian Seltzer, Rosa Sirota. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Puneet Sahota, and I live in Bala-Cynwyd. I'm a practicing physician with expertise in developmental and adult psychiatry and a mother. Most importantly, I am a taxpayer and resident of Lower Merion who actually has a child in the district and a baby on the way who will be. I'm a special needs parent, and I'm here to represent the special needs community in our district. The plaintiffs do not speak for me or for us. My son with special needs began kindergarten at Belmont Hills totally unable to function independently in the classroom. Today, only a year and a half later, in first grade, he is loved by his classmates, he is included in all they do, he is speaking French, and he is fully mainstreamed and above grade level in reading, math, and at grade level in writing. My child, who had a significant language delay because of his incredible teachers at Belmont Hills and because of all of you, the leadership who support them. He has far exceeded all our expectations, and I will not mortgage his future. I have a simple message. Our children deserve a voice. This is not a political message. It is a moral and an ethical one. No one who does not have a child in Lower Merion now should be taking away our children's voices and their rights. The plaintiffs of this lawsuit seek to do exactly that. This is a public school district, not a corporation, and I support this democratically elected school board. I am an American citizen. It is a fundamental American value and right for all of our children to have a free, high-quality public education. Without it, we will not have an informed citizenry to be our future leaders. These children are our future, our legacy, and our most precious investment. A couple $100 tax refund is not worth mortgaging our children's future, and I will not stand by while their voices are taken away. I implore this board, as you face these challenges and false accusations from individuals with no stake in our children, please do not forget our most vulnerable children, those who have the least voice, which are our special needs children. Our children with special needs have the right, the legal right, and the ethical right to a free, appropriate public education. Have courage, please, members of this board. Stand up for our children and for what is right. Maintain special education quality in Lower Merion School District. Go ahead, Ms. Van Lynch, and fight until you win. I will stand with you, and we will stand with you, we, the special needs community here in Lower Merion. So please, stand with our children, be their voice, ensure for them a secure future. I know I speak for most parents in this district. Please, I ask other parents to learn more and sign our petition at savelmsd.com. And please, stand up for our children and their future. Vote in the school board elections on Tuesday, May 16th. Thank you.
Mr. Gleason.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Gleason from Rosemont, Pennsylvania. And it's just as it was tough to follow the kids for Dr. Copeland, that was very tough speech to follow, and I agree with most, if not all, of your points. The people who are here to speak out against the lawsuit and continued litigation and out against the budget aren't trying to cut programs. They're not trying to cut special education. They're not trying to make the Lower Merion schools inferior. What we're trying to do is to increase transparency and to stop the practices that have resulted in this district accumulating $60 million of taxpayer funds for unspecified purposes. As Amara Briggs pointed out earlier, you do not roll forward surpluses even though they occur after you've projected huge deficits. That's illegal. It's certainly against good budgeting practice of any corporation, of any school. I've served on the board of 3 independent schools, and if we ever did that, set a tuition or we have to raise our money through tuition every year, unlike you guys who can just raise it through taxes. But if we ever did that, we wouldn't be trustees. We wouldn't be serving the fiduciary responsibilities of our constituents, and I don't think you're doing that at all. I also disagree strongly with the statements from earlier speakers that only people, and the chairman of the Democratic Party who said in a Suburban editorial that only people who have children in the district should have a say in this process. So I'm here to represent the taxpayers, as is Mr. Wolk and other folks. So what we're really talking about, we're not talking about the programs or the enrollment growth or even the salaries. We can agree to disagree about what's reasonable and what expenditure levels are appropriate. But what we are talking about, and I really encourage everyone who's spoken tonight, if you have kids in the district or not, just read Judge Smythe's order and read the recent Commonwealth Court order. That's what we're really talking about. There's nothing in that complaint. There are things in the complaint, but there are nothing in those 2 orders that talk about anything other than budgeting and fiscal matters. So to get up here and speak and make us look like villains for cutting education is just not factually correct. What this board has done is repeatedly and systematically rigged its budget over 10 years by projecting deficits when in fact surpluses have occurred, and then they have illegally, in violation of Section 609, which requires a 2/3 vote of the board directors specifically, they've delegated that responsibility to the business manager and to the auditors. The auditors work for you, not vice versa. I'll remind you of that. So just to say that the auditors have to tell you how to move your illegally raised funds is just false, and it's really disgusting as a taxpayer that you continue to let that happen. And finally, you are double dipping on the PSERS and on the special education because you're exceeding the Act 1 balance each year and you're putting money in deficits, so you're counting money twice, and that is also illegal. Thanks very much.
Adrian Seltzer.
Excuse me, Mr. Roos, the last speaker used used the words illegal a number of times. Would you respond to that, please?
Yeah, and it's actually subjects that I've already covered. As I went through earlier on the fund balance slides, which I believe it's slide 22, all of the fund balance transfers have been done appropriately in accordance not only with Section 609 but also 687 of the school code. And as far as the other claim regarding the violations of illegal tax increases, those were also, as we continue to say, they're not correct either. We hotly dispute the claims regarding the alleged lack of transparency and other illegal transfers, and that's really all I have to say.
I'm short. Okay. Adrian Seltzer in Wynwood. And I'm really sorry that this lawsuit is happening, because what it does is it muddies the water about being fiscally responsible. And I had a question the last time I was here, which was about getting reimbursed from Medicare or Medicaid, I'm sorry, for special needs. And in your budget, you said you only get $3.5 million from the state, and I think it was $470,000 from federal. And I was wondering, where in the budget do we have the reimbursement for from Medicaid for the special needs costs? If it's gone up 3 times, I would think there would be some more reimbursement from Medicaid for these costs. And I think that the point of making something fiscally responsible is evil, and it means that we want less stuff, less for our children, is just the wrong way to phrase this whole thing. I think that none of us goes to, well, at least I don't, and I'm sure a lot of people here don't go to Bloomingdale's and just buy stuff off the shelf, or go to Louis Vuitton and buy retail. I mean, you can get quality, but you can also watch your costs as you're getting that quality. And that's what I'm talking about. I don't want to be put in with the group that is supporting the lawsuit. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a point of just watching costs and seeing what we can do to lower them. I was here during the presentation for the facilities. That gentleman is doing a wonderful job. Is that type of work being done in all areas? And that's questions that we don't know, because these things are not broadcast. Nobody could see the wonderful job that gentleman was doing with the budget on getting the electrical costs down, because it's in the morning and nobody can come. So there has to be, this is biting you by not having this transparency. There I go.
Just real quickly, the presentation that's been spoken of was broadcast. I believe it's still on the website, as was the one for curriculum, as will be the one for staffing, as will be the one for special education. So it was broadcast. It's currently still there. I seem to remember the question was, at the time, how much was the reimbursement for transportation? And it was $8,000, I think, and we said that, you weren't here, but we said that, and that's on the tape too.
Okay, because usually the committee meetings are not broadcast.
We have Rosa Sirota, James Duran, Bruce Boma, and Siobhan Pendergrast, I think.
Good evening. My name is Rosa Sirota. I live in Wynwood, and as I look around this evening, you can just see the angst in the audience, and I wonder if I want to request something of the board, and I would like you to ask that folks don't call out or clap after our testimonies, everyone's, because I don't think that's it's respectful. I don't think it helps discourse. I think it pits one group against another, and the commissioners do not allow that, and I think it takes away from the issues, whatever we agree or disagree on. So I'm going to ask that you respectfully ask folks to not make comments or clap, because we'll be here till 2 o'clock in the morning if that continues to happen. And I'm requesting that. I know that's part of my 2 minutes probably, so I'm going to get on quicker. I don't know if you will indulge me on that. Thank you. Thank you. What upsets me most about this is that this pits neighbor against neighbor. This pits one opinion against another. And people are looked at as enemies. I will tell you, I told you this, I mentioned this before, I'm going to bring it up with everybody. Presidential election last November. Someone came to me with a piece of paper, and they wanted me to put it on the podium or put it wherever people can see it. And I read it very, very quickly. And when I saw enemies on it, enemies of the school district, I said, I'm not posting this. I'm not posting anything that indicates anybody is an enemy. And the person said, why? And I said, I'm not doing it. And she said, well, look, there's one over there. And I said, go. I didn't post that. And you can go read it. It's hanging at the bottom of the podium of my, the Republican school board person. And I said, it doesn't say enemies. It's basically information. It's an informational paper. And she was quite disgruntled with me. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. But I think you have to be very, very clear in the information you give to folks. You sent a letter out last week to parents. And what you mentioned that the appellate court did not rule on budgeting or anything like that. Well, the appellate court said nothing about that, absolutely nothing. And that was sort of not, I guess it was misleading. I'm going to put it that way. What the appellate court ruled on was that the attorneys for the school district and 2 law firms failed to give in their brief on time. So the appellate court ruled, nothing's happening here. So we spent all that money, 2 law firms, for nothing. And what I am saying to you is, resolve this. You can resolve this. You can take care of this. And if you choose to go forward with it, instead of using money in a different way and changing your procedures, I think you're doing a disservice to the community. And I also think you have to send a message to this community that this is a discussion, it's a debate. My grandson joined the debate club in his last year of Lower Merion High School. I went to a few of those debates. They weren't like this. You know, we're all reasonable folks. We care about this community. We care about public education. Let's be reasonable and support that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. The list is now closed, so how many more speakers, Ms. LeBaire?
We have 4 left.
Okay, thank you. And we will reopen the list at the end of the meeting. This is a board business meeting, so we need to make sure we get through business. So please, sir.
Good evening. James Dorn from Gladwin. I'll give you some advice, and it's time to start listening to someone other than those who have put us all in this incredible mess. In order to avoid certain further litigation, adopt a budget with no tax increase, refund last year's tax receipts in excess of the index, and negotiate a comprehensive settlement with the taxpayers? Or do you intend to continue to drag the school district, township, and its residents through the mud? Do you intend to continue false budgeting to raise taxes illegally? It's clear now, and you have been told by both the trial court and the Commonwealth Court, that your fake budgeting since 2009 is a violation of both the Public School Code and Act 1. When you thumb your nose at the law, how are your students being served by your example? If you continue down the wrong path, sooner or later your luck will run out. You will go beyond any protection you may have as an elected official. If you haven't already, you will go beyond any insurance coverage you may have, unless, of course, your insurance carriers provide coverage for deliberate illegal practices. I pay my school taxes every year because it's the law. We should all obey the law. Am I right?
Bruce. And then Siobhan Prendergast and Steve Tonkovich.
So my name is Dr. Bruce Bowman. I'm a physician, academician, professor at the college level, and I highly value quality education. I don't think that's the issue tonight. I've heard lots of positive comments about the quality of education in this district. My own son, Ryan Bowman, is a graduate of our school system. He graduated from Harriton last year and is doing extremely well in engineering at Drexel, and I'm forever grateful for that. I think what the issue is whether the community believes the budget issues are appropriate or not. And I see that there's an issue that's become public that's polarizing the community, seriously polarizing the community. And the thing that I'm most concerned about is that we all love the quality of education that we get in this district. But the problem is love has no meaning unless there's trust. This, I don't know what it is. I'm not privy to it. I'm not privy to the facts and figures, but you're losing the trust of the community. And I would urge you to do whatever it takes to restore that trust, because without the trust, the quality is going to severely get dampened. So you really somehow need to build that trust. It is a big issue. And I don't care who stands here or talks on either side. It's got to come down to the trust, really. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Siobhan Pendergast. I'm from Gladwin, and I do not support your budget. I don't support this budgeting process. I don't support your budget. I don't support your budgeting process. I do think it's shameful, actually, that you're pitting neighbor against neighbor. This is not about school education. This is about responsible budgeting. This is about accountability. This is about transparency. You have 55 to 60 million in surplus. You were told you couldn't raise the taxes. You went twice and lost. And when you went twice and lost. And even when you lost this second round, he said if you want to raise your taxes, you could only raise it 2.4%. Tonight you presented that you're going to raise it 2.74%. At what point are you going to be held accountable? You are the single most largest runaway train in my tax bill. And this lawsuit is about holding you accountable. This lawsuit is about stopping the unending bleeding of you just taking money from all of the taxpayers. It's almost appears incredibly arrogant what you're doing, that you've gone twice and you've lost, and you've said tonight you have no budget for your legal fees, or you won't disclose your budget for your legal fees, that you have insurance, but your insurance only paid a cap of $195, yet you hire lawyers for $95. I may have that number wrong, but it's clearly over what you're allowed to have by your insurance. And every question we ask about budgeting and accountability, we can't get a straight answer. And then tonight during your presentation, you talk about $14 million in unassigned funds and $6 million like emergency funds. 7 years ago I came here, asked you what a $3 million miscellaneous line item was for. And you told me it's miscellaneous, doesn't matter. We have a huge budget, it's miscellaneous. I told you at that time, if I went to my president and said, I have a $3 million budget and I can't tell you what's in it or what I'm going to spend on it, I'd be fired that day. This is about accountability. And if we want to get into stats about the past, the present, and the future, if you Google U.S. News and World Report, as I did the last time I came before you, they said we were 480th in the nation, and we were number 5 in Pennsylvania. Well, it's great that we can say we're number 5 in Pennsylvania. But the best school in Pennsylvania is 51 in the nation, and that's Mastermind. The next school in Pennsylvania doesn't show up until 303 or 353. So if we want to be the best in the 300s and beyond, great. We have a 56.9% graduation college readiness. We are great in math at 90%, 88 in English, but you have 11-to-1 teacher ratio, and Conestoga is number 3 in the state, and they have 17-to-1 and twice the amount of kids. So we're not doing something right here, and I'm asking you to be accountable.
This is the last speaker.
Thank you. My name is Steve Tonkovich. I'm a resident in Gladwin. First, you folks don't have an easy job. I don't envy you that position. I think you folks are doing a decent job on the education side from what I can see from what has been presented tonight. However, I also came out of a public school system. However, I do take issue with the lack of transparency with the budget process. You folks have had discrepancies in your bond prospectus versus your public budgets. I don't understand how that can occur. You seem to be putting aside the issue that you have 2 lawsuits against you, or 2 court cases which have said you're not doing things right. You've got a $60 million reserve which is under question. It may not be illegal, we don't know yet, but we need to determine that and we need to fix that. I think you folks as educators need to take your role model position very seriously. If children are looking at you and seeing you under this much scrutiny for what you're trying to do, they're going to question how they should behave themselves. I also want to take issue with statements about the home values. All home values in Lower Merion are not rising. My homes along my street are not selling. They're not turning over quickly. They're falling in price. That has a significant impact on the future. It also has an impact on the future of your tax base. If you keep raising taxes, you will start to decrease home values. Home values are based on neighborhoods, schools, taxes, and other factors. If the taxes get too high, the home values will start to fall, and you will lose the tax base that gives you the ability to create the school system you're trying to create. Thank you.
I'd just like to address a couple of things. One, there were a number of questions about actual to budget and so forth, and I think the majority of those are in our budget book, which gets produced just before the final budget. But I would ask that you, Mr. Orlando, sort of review what was asked there and indicate where that can be found. Secondly, I've heard a couple of times, actually 3 or 4 times, the number 60 million thrown around. It's 55, and well, never mind. I tried to explain, but there's no $60 million.
So we still have a full agenda ahead of us. However, I'm sure a number of us need to, audience and board included, to stretch our legs for about 3 minutes and use the facilities. So we'll reconvene at 10:30. Okay, I will continue on with the routine board president report and approve the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings: March 20th, regular board business meeting; April 17th, Education Committee and Supplementary Meeting, and accept the committee meeting minutes of March 22nd, Communications; March 29th, Finance; April 5th, Curriculum; April 5th, Finance; April 7th, Policy; and April 20th, Facilities and Purchasing. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve? So move. There a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Copeland?
Thank you, Dr. Van der Lynch. Just quick highlights. The NAMM, N-A-M-M Foundation has recognized Lower Merion School District for its outstanding commitment to music education with a Best Communities for Music Education designation for the 7th consecutive year. Lower Merion joins the distinguished ranks of 527 other districts across the country in receiving the prestigious distinction in 2017. The Best Communities Music Education designation is awarded to districts that demonstrate outstanding achievement in efforts to provide music access and education to all students, hence the mitosis song that we heard earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland.
All right. And you want me to go for it?
No, HR, I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead.
Okay. Under Human Resources, The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approves the attached Human Resources Actions, HR 1 through HR 6.
Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Curriculum Committee by Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you. The Curriculum Committee of the Board met April 5th. We actually, we met for a couple of hours, and then the presentations were at the last education meeting, which is videotaped, so I'm going to cut this shorter than usual, given the late hour here. The administration recommended adopting Investigations 3 math program to be purchased for grades K through 2 to be implemented in the fall. It includes teacher and student materials, a 6-year digital courseware license, and shipping for $175,000. Again, we got a full report on this, and the board approved it to be moved to facilities and purchasing. We also had the 4th presentation to the board on the proposed changes to the middle school. The 5th presentation was at the previous education meeting again. So I'll only say that there had been significant differences in the schedules between our 2 middle schools, and it was seen by the administration to be a problem in terms of equity experiences for our students, and it also hindered sharing resources. And so we have revised the schedule in ways that we think meets our needs to kind of maintain teaming, to ensure teacher collaboration time, and to increase student choice in the schedule. We also received an update on how the state is now allowing computer science to substitute for a math or science class, which is not likely to affect many children in our district. And the next meeting will be May 3rd at 8:30 a.m. in this room.
Thank you.
Okay. The administration, under Educational Services, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached invoice in the amount of $175,164 for the purchase of K2 investigation resources.
There questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Student Services, the administration would like to take sections A through D in one motion. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the Educational Services Agreements SS1 through SS4. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached OIG Compliance Now LLS contract to provide monthly screening of providers, vendors, and personnel that provide medical assistance and health program services in the amount of $2,500. And C, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Easter Seals Agreement for Special Instruction Services for the summer of 2017 extended school year for the set hourly rate as described in the agreement. And finally, under D, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Austilis Rehabilitation Services contract to provide occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and specialized therapeutic healthcare services at $61.48 an hour for the 2017-18 school year and $62.33 an hour for the 2018-19 school year.
There questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I will now have the report of the Finance Committee meeting by Mr. Bonaventura.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met twice since our last business meeting. The first one, both of them regarding the budget. The first one was on March 29th, and we talked about facilities and busing specifically, and we kind of got into the weeds on the budgets for those areas. These meetings were actually videotaped, so you can go onto the district website and watch the meeting. The slides are very detailed, so you'll get a lot of good information. There are 2 points I'd like to quickly highlight. One, that while the square footage is going up, our utility usage is going down, and a couple of factors for that include general efficiencies that we're putting into place, commodity prices, and the moderate winters that we've had. So some of the, those are unknowable, but we enjoy the fact that, we've had that advantage. Last year's budget for these areas was $19.2 million. The actual was $17.3 million. And the reason for the difference includes energy costs were down, overtime was down. That's overtime was $125,000 less than budgeted. That was mainly having to do with the mild winter. We had some savings in insurance, and we got a better deal with our telecommunications provider. So we will continue to look for efficiencies in those areas, and I thought that as I said, the slides were really informative. The second meeting was on April 5th. The topic was curriculum and instruction. Again, I'll just highlight 2 things. The 3 biggest impacts on the curriculum budget are the cost of textbooks and materials, new students, and our strategic plan implementation. And this year, and off and on in previous years, but this year in particular, Mr. Copeland went to the curriculum folks and said it was zero-based. So start from zero, build your budgets from scratch, rather than estimating up or down from what you had last year. So they tried to really look for zeroing out wherever they could unnecessary expenditures and move forward. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 26th at 8:30 a.m. It will also be videotaped and televised, or recorded. I guess it's no longer videotaped. And the topic will be staffing, benefits, and technology. And then the final meeting for this purpose will be Wednesday, May 17th. And the focus will be on special services and gifted education.
Thank you. We'll now have the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. We met this past Thursday, April 20th, and we began the meeting by reviewing and recommending for approval tonight the list of bills. We then reviewed and recommended for approval the one contract on the purchasing report from A-Turf, Inc. for $547,994. This is for the artificial turf field on Arnold Field that has been in place for approximately 11 years and has reached the end of its useful life. The average life of a turf field installed back in 2006 is approximately 8 years, so we've gone several years past the average. The athletic directors of both high schools reviewed several vendors and made several site visits to other turf fields and concluded this manufacturer provides the best quality for a field that can support the different types of sports that we have. We then reviewed and recommended for approval 3 district contracts. The first was with Easter Seals at a rate of $92.50 or $94.50 per hour, depending on the service. This is a 1-year renewal contract for Easter Seals to provide instruction and tutoring for IEP students and to provide IEP services for ESY students. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a contract with OIG Compliance Now at $2,500 per year. This is a renewal contract for OIG to provide monthly screening for district personnel and vendors of the district who are receiving medical assistance. The last contract was with Austil's Rehabilitation Services for rates for $61.48 per hour for this year and then $62.33 per hour for the second year. This is a 2-year renewal contract with Austil's to provide occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and other supports to students in need. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a new 3-year contract with Kinetic Physical Therapy for a total of $468,600. The district issued an RFP to have trainers at both high schools and both middle schools during practices and games and support a concussion monitoring program. This bidder was the lower of the 2 bidders who responded by approximately $68,000. The district has the option to cancel this contract if the services from this new provider are inadequate after the first year of going with them. We then reviewed and approved the purchase Recommended for approval the purchase of Talent Ed records for $14,800. The district currently uses Talent Ed software for recruiting, but the current onboarding process of new hires is very paper-intensive and inefficient. This software module can be added to the district's current software package purchased from Talent Ed and make the onboarding process more efficient. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a purchase contract for Cisco wireless routers from ePlus for $578,506.42. The wireless routers in all of our buildings are near the end of their useful life and are being replaced in accordance with the 5-year plan. In addition, we are trying to upgrade our routers to help support our enrollment growth. The good news is approximately half of this purchase will be either reduced or refunded through the E-rate discount program once that's been approved. We then reviewed and recommended for approval of the purchase of an additional investigations module for grades K through 12 for all 6 elementary schools for $175,164.83. The merits were discussed by Dr. Gilbert in her curriculum report. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a 15-day extension contract with My Turn to Drive School. My Turn to Drive will lease classroom space from the district to provide lecture-style driving education to district students for a payment to the district of $600. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a construction management contract with Reynolds Construction for various amounts to manage the following upcoming and potential construction projects. The first was temporary classrooms at Bala Cynwyd Middle School for $70,000. This is to manage the installation of temporary classrooms at BCMS, has been discussed in previous meetings. We've also put them on contract for potential permanent construction at BCMS and potential expansion of the cafeteria at Welsh Valley for $612,000. This is just kind of a placeholder, because should the district decide to pursue these projects in the future, we will have Reynolds on contract ready to step in quickly. But they are not going to start work until we get ready to start those projects on that part of the contract. We then reviewed and recommended for approval an individual work order with Gilbert Architects for a not-to-exceed amount of $25,000. This contract is for Gilbert Architects to update its building capacity study last performed in 2015. Since that time, the district has added classrooms and converted interior space into new classrooms, so an update will be beneficial to developing a facilities master plan. We then reviewed and recommended for approval another individual worker with Gilbert Architects for a not-to-exceed amount of $12,500. This contract is for Gilbert Architects and Snyder Hoffman to convert an existing single toilet bathroom into a boys' bathroom with a toilet and a urinal at Welsh Valley. As enrollment has increased at Welsh Valley, the principal believes this conversion of this bathroom, along with changing designations at other nearby bathrooms, will improve the student movement in that area of the building. We then reviewed and recommended for approval the following change orders. At Welsh Valley, an increase of $2,633.75. This was for the back charge to repair turf for a ditch that had been dug to run some conduit. And at Bala Cynwyd Middle School, a decrease of $24,652.72 for the replacement of boilers and installation of a backup generator. The new proposal, the updated proposal we got was less expensive than the original. We did reduce the scope of work due to an existing automation of systems in the building, but we did also add some backup lighting in some classrooms. We then moved on to project updates. For the DAO work that's been recently completed, the final paperwork is in the process of being submitted, and that should be wrapped up hopefully next month. For BCMS modulars, the district did receive approval from the Board of Commissioners for the temporary classrooms. The Board of Commissioners also allowed the district to hold additional parking in reserve to preserve some screen space around Bala Cynwyd Middle School. Construction should be completed before the start of school in the fall. We did discuss the concepts around the permanent construction of 12 classrooms at Bala Cynwyd Middle School, along with modifications to the cafeteria. For the cafeteria, we are considering reconfiguring the serving area and changing the seating arrangements. We then went on to discuss cafeteria changes at Welsh Valley, again changing the serving area and using larger tables to accommodate increasing enrollment. The next meeting will be on May 11th at 8:30 in this room.
Under the Business Office and Finance section, I want to take items C through E and G through K in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following action items. Approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for March 2017, receipt of the third quarter student activities report, accept donation of the playground equipment and chess tables totaling $4,304.50 from the Gladwin Elementary HSA to Gladwin Elementary School. Accept the donation of $1,000 from Joshua and Jane Novoto to Gladwin Elementary. Approve the donation of $500 from Chaden Chada to Belmont Hills Elementary School Library in appreciation for his children's experience at the school. Accept donation from Tisha and Corey Higgs for 6 copies of Corey's books entitled Be a Lion at Heart for each elementary school to be used as a counseling resource for anti-bullying, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof.
There are questions?
Actually, I just want to say, because I haven't said in a few meetings that, yes, that I have no connection to Gilbert Architects, just, I just want to make that clear. Thanks.
Sure. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And just want to accept with pleasure and thank the parents and the HSAs of Gladwin and Belmont Hills for their generous donations. Mr. Orlando?
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors tentatively adopts the 2017-18 proposed final school district budget, which authorizes expenditures totaling $265,984,344 as presented in the attachment, levies a real estate tax of 28.2145 mils, continues 1% real estate transfer tax, and continues the $5 local services tax.
There are questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second? Second. All in favor? Oh, need a roll call? Okay.
Oh, no, not the all in favor. so
We
sorry.
got the first and second.
Yeah, got it. Ms. Pollard?
Yes.
Dr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. DiBonaventura?
Yeah.
Ms. Ackman? Yes. Mr. Fetterman? Yes. Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Van Lynch?
Yes.
All in favor, motion passes.
9-0.
Under the facilities and operations section, Mr. Driscoll went over all these in detail from his report. So I'm going to take items A through I in one motion. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the following action items. Award a contract to A-Turf, Inc. to replace the artificial turf surface at Lower Merion High School, Arnold Field. Approve the agreement with Connectics Physical Therapy, LLC for athletic trainer services at both high schools and middle schools for a fee of $156,200 for the 17-18 school year, with the option of the district to renew for a term of 2 additional years. Approve with Reynolds Construction LLC, construction contract management service for installing temporary and permanent classrooms at Ballacilla Middle School and renovations at Walsh Valley Middle School for a fee of $612,000. I'm sorry. Yeah. $612,000, yeah. Approve the First Amendment to license agreement with My Turn to Drive, extend the agreement to accommodate classroom driver education classes at Lower Merion High School in May and June of 2017. Approve the individual work order with professional service with Gilbert Architects, Inc. to update the district-wide building capacity study for not to exceed fee of $25,000 for professional services and reimbursable expenses. Approve the individual work order for Gilbert Architects, Inc. for restroom modifications at Walsh Valley Middle School for not to exceed total fee of $12,500 for professional services and reimbursable expenses. Approve the quote from E Plus for Cisco wireless materials in the amount of $578,506.42. Approve the purchase of records add-on component to Talent Ed Resources Software Package with People Admin at a cost of $14,800, and approve the change orders for additions and alterations at Ballacilla Middle School and Walsh Valley Middle School.
Again, these were all gone over in great detail by Mr. Driscoll in his report. Are there questions? Please.
Yeah, I don't know if this should go to Pat Ganan or Vic or, item 11 is a conversion of a single bathroom at Welsh Valley to a boys' bathroom. What's that? Item F, I'm sorry. F11, right? 11F, sorry, 11F. And I was wondering just whether it was discussed whether that would be a multi-use bathroom, for whomever needed to use it rather than just for boys, since it is a single-use bathroom, given our new transgender policy and an opportunity to take advantage of what we have. I'm just wondering whether this would be able to just be a unisex, open to anybody who needs it, kind of single-use restroom rather than just boys. So I don't know was that discussed? Is that something that we can do? Is that more just a designation on the part of the school?
The project is actually to convert what is now a single-use restroom into a restroom with 2 fixtures in it, and to designate it as boys.
But is the idea that just one person's going in there at a time? I mean,
No.
just because.
No, the intent is that it could be used by 2 persons at one time. The problem brought to us by the principal was that he didn't feel there was enough access to restrooms for boys and girls in the D building. The D building's restrooms that were original to the school were converted as part of the renovations in 98, 2000. One room was made into a tech closet, the other was made into a single-use restroom that was handicapped accessible. On each floor of the D building, there's one single-use restroom that was designated, one for boys, one for girls. You'll remember that the E building was built brand new at that time. The group restrooms for the E building were deliberately located next to the D building. So by code, there are enough fixtures for all the students in both schools. The principal felt that he had a problem with students being able to access the restrooms during the class period, changing times that were available, asked us to see what we could come up with. So our solution was if we could take that single-use restroom, which is currently designated as faculty, and add another fixture, then we would be able to double the fixture count in the D building. That room could be designated for boys. The 2 rooms that are single-use, one on each level, could be designated for girls.
Could we turn one of those in the upstairs and downstairs into a unisex?
I'm sure that we could. I was asked at the meeting if we had made changes as a result of requirements that we accommodate under our new policy. And outside of some changes that we're in the process of making at Gladwin, no one has approached us and asked for those kind of things. But that's certainly one way to solve that problem, is to do that, because those are already single-use restrooms.
Are there any additional questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? There a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Policy Committee meeting by Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The Policy Committee met on April 7th in this room, and we discussed for second reading Policy and Administrative Regulation 713, Access to School Facilities, which covers topics related to facilities, requires like requisite proof of insurance for users, booster club use of facilities, concessions, outside vendors, status of facilities on religious holidays. Discussion focused on the term incidental users and its definition again. The administrative regulation was approved as revised pending the second reading and approval of the policy. Policy 207 was then discussed, attendance. Act 138 of 2016 amended Pennsylvania's truancy laws and significantly changes the procedures to be followed when a child becomes truant and habitually truant. We discussed these new requirements and the changes that need to take place at our schools. The administration is also looking into using email as a method of obtaining absentee notes in the future. A communication plan will be utilized to ensure that parents are aware of the changes at the start of the new school year. The administrative regulation was approved as revised pending the second reading and approval of the policy. Then we discussed Policy 604, also for a second reading, tax waiver requests. The policy has seen no changes from its first reading last month, but it has seen changes since its last revision. It has been amended to include language that not receiving a tax bill is not a rare or extraordinary item. Also, language has been changed to reflect that nonprofit entities can get tax waivers retroactive for 1 year if the property is used for the purpose of which it was granted tax-exempt status. Then we went on for first readings. Tutoring for fee, Policy 460. This policy is being amended to include spouses or other persons with whom a teacher makes his or her home and children in the definition of tutor. Thus, tutoring is allowed as long as it is not provided to current students of the teacher by the teacher, tutor, spouse, partner, or children. This will also apply to performance activity sponsors as well as teachers, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. All tutoring of students must be done off school campuses. In addition, there will now be disclosure requirement associated with the tutoring that did not exist before this revision. We then went on to discuss administrative regulations. We briefly discussed administrative regulations that were being put in place to memorialize procedures that the district already follows with respect to federal grant programs. These are required pursuant to the Uniform Grant Guidelines of 2016. And finally, we had a discussion, we briefly began the discussion of policy in AR 701, sale or disposal of district property and equipment. We discussed how an item could become surplus or obsolete and how and when it can be donated rather than disposed of using the normal course of action, i.e. eBay. We also discussed allowing students to buy their laptops at the end of their useful lives. However, this idea has not been fully vetted by the technology department. This discussion will continue next month on May 5th. And that was the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. The attached policies were reviewed for a second reading. Policy 207, attendance. Policy 604, tax waiver request. Policy 713, access to school facilities. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve? There's second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading, the following policies were reviewed for first reading: Policy 460, tutoring for a fee, and Policy 701, equipment disposal. We will now have the report of the Communications Committee meeting by Ms. Ackman.
Thank you. The Communications and Community Engagement Committee met on Wednesday, March 22nd at 8:30 a.m. First, we reviewed recent news, highlights, and achievements, which at the time included the Science Olympiad, the Jazz Festival, getting ready for the spring shows, and Mr. Harridan and Mr. LM, and I believe Mr. Harridan raised an enormous amount. Okay, $31,000 this year. Not to diminish Mr. LM, but that's an incredibly impressive accomplishment. We had a lot to talk about given all the communications needs necessitated by both our budget, our enrollment growth and impact on facilities, and I guess our litigation. So we talked about how we're planning to communicate about facilities and enrollment growth, and coincidentally today, one of the results of all that work, I think, was circulated to the community, and there's a newsletter and that is posted online on the homepage of the website with a very clear button to take you to it, and a mailer that everyone who lives in Lower Merion Township should receive in the next few days. And I think this provides a very easy to understand set of information and context about our growth and some of the decision-making that we as a community will need to do. We then talked about budget communications, and I want to compliment the administration and the chair of the Finance Committee and everyone who's been involved in getting more information out there in different forms during this budget season. We continue to try to communicate how we budget, the process for how we do it, the decisions we need to make in order to keep the district running. We saw a little bit of that tonight. We then moved on to the website. Congrats to Doug and his team, because a new website for the district launched, I think 2 weeks ago. And I hope others have already used it extensively. Of note, it's great on your mobile device. It integrates athletic schedules. There was a lot of communication in advance to families, and I know extensive focus groups with parents and the community, including the ISC. So hopefully that's a tool. I'm sure there's some tweaks along the way as happens in anything new like that. We talked about the middle school schedule. We reviewed some upcoming opportunities that the principals and the administration made available to the community to better understand the schedule. There was another presentation about it at our last board meeting and meetings at the schools. So I think really clear information is now out there, and the community can provide input. We had a discussion of our strategic plan and recent communications. There was some discussion about growing some of our community partnerships, which now are a little bit ad hoc, into more strategic and meaningful in ways that can be better integrated in the curriculum across many grades, such as with the Franklin Institute. So I think we'll hear more about that over time. We had a brief review of recent crisis communications, which at the time included, I think, a threat made by a student at Harridan High School and some other incidents that had come up recently. The administration is exploring using PowerSchool at the elementary level, and we reviewed some upcoming events, including the Girls Leadership Conference, which I think happened this past Saturday, and Melissa gave some remarks there. Reading Olympics, which I was at and was fantastic as always. Budget meetings, and also Screenagers, which I think happened. Oh, it's tomorrow night, right? Okay, at 7 at Welsh Valley Middle School, which is about technology and the teenage brain, and I think we'll have really high attendance. The IC is sponsoring it, and anyway, the community should try to attend. Our next meeting of the Communications and Community Engagement Committee will be this Wednesday at 7 p.m. in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ackman. We'll now have audience recognition on agenda or non-agenda items. If you choose to speak, please sign in with Ms. LaPera. Again, 3-minute time limit. If you could give us your name and generally where you reside in the district. Oh, I'm sorry, before you speak? I can do it after. Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Please, you're fine. Diane, you want to go ahead and make your comment?
Sure. We approved the budget earlier, and at that time I wasn't sort of mentally prepared to make a comment, but I just want to say that I think we all listened very carefully to the comments that the public made. There were, I'm going to say, 35 or so public speakers. And I want to say that I was comfortable approving the proposed final budget, but I do think, I think we've begun to improve the transparency of our budgeting process. It's hard for, I think, board members to have perspective of what's transparent and what's not, because we're at every meeting and we see every presentation. And so we're assuming that other people have seen everything that we have, and maybe, and I think we need to appreciate the fact that people aren't as in the weeds as we are with all of this. We did have the 2 meetings, and 2 more are on the books that will be recorded and viewable, that really go into some depth about the budget, and I think that will help with our transparency. But there was one speaker who, towards the end, who spoke about the trust and rebuilding the trust. And if anybody is still listening at the end of this meeting, I'd really welcome comments from the public regarding what they think we can do to help build that trust back up again. And so a couple of people had some concrete examples of things that they wanted to see from us. And I personally would really welcome any other things that I could do as finance chair, or we could do collectively as a board as a whole, to really improve that. So I just want to say that we heard what was said today. We listened. We'll process it. We'll talk amongst ourselves where we can, one-on-one. We'll talk with community members where we can, and we'll have one more shot at the budget before we prove it in its final form. So the more feedback we can get from the community on this, the better. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. And there's a communications committee meeting this week, so that would be, obviously an appropriate place to have that additional dialogue. And to echo those sentiments, the board welcomes comments via community comments and phone calls to Ms. LaPera to the boards, to the overall board. So thank you. Please.
Good evening. My name is Azigera. I live in Penwyn, and I would like to talk to you about student safety. This is a subject that we've brought up in the past. I'm talking about students walking to and from Penwyn Elementary School. In the past, after several times we've brought up things, the administration looked into the subject, and changes were done, and they were helpful, but they haven't solved the entire problem. And what I'm specifically referring to is the intersection of Remington and Haverford. This was brought up several times, and this is an intersection where we have a cross guard, but we don't have a pedestrian cross light, unlike the 2 other intersections on Haverford and Manoa, and 1 west, I don't remember the street there, which, because of the particular shape of those intersections, you do have dedicated pedestrian cross light that you push with a button, and you get time where cars do not drive. The reason I'm bringing this up again is that 2 weeks ago we had, well, the luckiest moment this year so far, when a student was run over by a car in the morning, and luckily was relatively lightly hurt. And I can only say lightly hurt because it wasn't my kid. If it was, I would have said something else. In the past, I also heard from the administration that this is a state problem. I've been able to figure out that this is incorrect. This is not a state problem. This is a township issue. The township has jurisdiction and can change that. And since this is a funnel where you have dozens of students every day in the morning, some of them unaccompanied, crossing this intersection, and in the afternoon the same, and sometimes without the cross guard because some students stay to play afterwards in the playground. I cannot even count the number of times that I'm relatively big. You can't say that someone is missing me, that I'm not seen when I cross. And I have the cane with me. We have 2 kids have been almost hit by cars. There were several times I was almost hit with the cross guard in attendance. Drivers do not pay attention in that intersection to the level that we want to when kids are involved. We have been lucky so far. We've only been bringing this up, to my knowledge, in the last 2 years. Probably it was more than that, but I wasn't here. 2 years, one student run over and lightly injured. This is very, very lucky compared to what can happen there every day. You should talk to the township and take care of this matter. It shouldn't cost a lot. I don't know if you should pitch in, if they should pitch in, but you should insist that this would be remedied, and soon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Just a quick follow-up on that incident, which was extremely unfortunate. The administration was on top of what happened to the student who wasn't run over, but rather his foot was.
She was run over by a car. The car was on her foot.
Okay, so but run over suggests that she was hurt more than was reported. It was driver error, but on the side of the board administration, we reached directly out to Mr. Churchill, who is our commissioner for Penn-Win, and provided that information to not only him, but the rest of the board of commissioners. Pedestrian safety has been on a priority in terms of a task force that Mr. Copeland will speak to in a bit more detail. But I can't thank the administration enough for the work that they've done in terms of making sure that we follow through with our commitment. Again, driver error is not something that the district can control. However, we certainly want to, our first and fundamental focus is our student safety. So your comments are well taken. Mr. Copeland?
Yeah, you spoke to it, Dr. Van Lynch. Mr. Ganan and members of our administration meet with the township, members of that group. They also have community members who are on the committee. And I believe that we have put through the state DOT, or will put through, a request for walkability. There's an application you have to do for that, correct? Did we get a chance to do that yet?
That went in last week.
Okay, so that is a walkability study that's done by DOT, but to Dr. Van Lynch's points, the concerns have been raised with the local commissioner and with the commissioners as a whole, specifically for that pedestrian signal.
Yeah. By the way, of course there's something you can do about driver error. When drivers are not allowed to turn when the pedestrians are crossing, you control the driver, which is exactly what happens in the other two intersections. Since I use all of them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Please.
Hi, my name's Tanya Schreiber. I'm from Penn-Win, and I want to kind of address Ozzy's point as well as something Diane said. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Diane. She's always been very kind and always reached out to me after meetings to make sure that I felt like I had the answers that I needed. She asked a great question, and I feel I need to return the favor by saying, to build trust, when we come here the way we've been coming, I first reached out to the school district 5 years ago to ask for a traffic assessment on Manoa. And I'm in Haverford, and it literally took a child getting hit, not so bad, we just heard, understood, for us to get the DOT report that I know I asked for at least 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not, gosh, you guys must be so sick of me hearing me say this. We were waiting for, it was literally going to take a kid getting hit to get this done. That's the trust issue. I've been here every month, and it was going to take a kid getting hit for that report to get requested. I don't know what else we can do, but if you want to know what it would take to win back Penn-Win's trust, you got to show us. Don't just say it's still under consideration. I don't know how many more people we could bring to these meetings. I don't know how many more times we can ask you to come visit the school, walk it with us, look at the campus that we're talking about and the slope in the front and the traffic. We've asked so much for you to show us that you actually don't want to add more kids if there's a dangerous situation. And until you and my sister's on the task force, and if she knew that that practically defunct task force was going to be thrown in her face every time she worried about her kids, she never would have agreed to do it. It is not good enough to just punt it to a volunteer task force and not check in with them and not follow up and see if they're still meeting and ask them for updates. That's not what's happening. Months have passed, seasons have passed, almost a year with no update from that group. And nobody asked them what was going on. And we kept coming as a group, and we kept telling you what was going on. And all you kept telling us is that task force was, they're the ones doing it. It's not enough. That's how you build trust, by showing that you care about making sure kids aren't getting hurt.
Yeah, Mr. Ganand, because that's not my understanding. Mr. Ganand, has that task force been meeting?
We met in at the end of March, and but I don't believe we had met for about a year. That doesn't mean that the issues identified weren't being worked on, and it doesn't mean that we probably couldn't benefit from meeting more often. But we have met.
Thank you.
And the conversation for pedestrian safety has been at every intergovernmental meeting that we've had over the last year. We meet quarterly as school district representatives from the school district, Lower Merion Township, as well as Narberth Borough Council, and pedestrian safety is at the top of everyone's list. So again, and I've said this to you, Ms. Schreiber, before, to suggest that we want a child to get hurt is completely unfair and unfounded. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear that that is not, I have kids in Penwyn. So to suggest that that's not the case is also problematic. So I just want to make sure I go on record with that before that's the last comment on tape.
That's not what we were suggesting.
Mr. Roos, Sunshine Act.
Yes, there was April 17th executive session regarding negotiations of collective bargaining agreement. April 24th tonight, there was executive session regarding the litigation, specifically the Commonwealth Court appeal that we discussed earlier, as well as additional deliberation regarding negotiation of collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, Monday, May 8th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting. Monday, May 15th, regular board meeting. Committee meetings, Wednesday, April 26th, 8:30 a.m. Finance. Topic is staffing and technology. Wednesday, April 26th, 7 p.m. Communications. Wednesday, April 27th, the intergovernmental meeting will be hosted this week by the Lower Merion School District, representatives of the board, and again, that is a group of selected members of the district, Lower Merion Township, as well as Narberth Borough Council, and so we will be meeting in this room at 7 p.m. Wednesday, May 3rd, and let me also say, Wednesday, April 27th, legislative meeting was canceled. Wednesday, May 3rd, 8:30 a.m. curriculum, and Friday, May 5th, 8:30 a.m. policy. Thursday, May 11th, 8:30 a.m. facilities and purchasing. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.